Okay, good afternoon, committee members on this beautiful spring day. This afternoon, as we heard on the floor this morning, today is Youth Homelessness Awareness Day. And we have testimony from several folks involved with youth homelessness and some people with lived experience. And I'm glad to be able to welcome them to the committee this afternoon. So I have Representative Logan here as listed as first. Are you going to talk, Kate?
Yes.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. I have a handout for everyone.
This is, really appropriate as H 938 is continuing to be taken up in the Senate downstairs. So
Is there anyone at this stuff?
no.
I'll give you. Oh, yeah. You don't need familiar with it.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Just because we have lots of folks in the room who haven't been in the room before. I know you know us all, but we're going to go around the room and just do introductions.
Great.
So I'm Representative Teresa Wood. I live in Waterbury, and I also serve Bolton, Gilsborough, and Huntington.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dan Noyes. I represent Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere.
Hi, good afternoon. Eric McGuire. I represent Rutland City.
Brenda Steady, East Milton, Westford.
Hi, I'm Doug Bishop. I'm one of Colchester's representatives.
Hi, my name is Zon Eastis. I live in Guilford and I also represent Vernon.
Hello there, Esme Cole. I represent Hartford.
Hi, I'm Jubilee McGill and I represent Bridgeport, Middlebury, and Bridge.
Hi, I'm Ray Garofano. I live in Essex and I also represent part of Essex Junction.
And right around the outside.
Caitlin Britt. Circles. Family Services. Christina Brown, Spectrum Youth and Family Services.
Favor Ellis, Elevate Youth Services.
I'm James Maloney with Channel 5.
I'm Riley Combo with
Star Barton, Northeast Community Services. Amy Johnson, with our peer partners. Heather Getty, I'm with NCSS and St. Albans.
I'm Jesse Warren. I work for Elevate.
Great. Welcome, everybody. And the floor is yours, Representative Logan.
Great, and I'm Representative Kate Logan. I represent the Chittenden 16 district. That's most of the Old North End and all of downtown Burlington. I'm also here in my capacity as the director of the Vermont Coalition of Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs, and I appreciate getting to come back again for to your committee this session. So, Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. So, the Vermont Coalition of Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs is also known as VCRIP. We're housed at Elevate Youth Services in Washington County, but we're a statewide program. I also co-chair the Vermont Committee to End Youth Homelessness, along with Favor Ellis, who's one of our co-chairs, and Russell Bradbury Carlin from Interaction in Brattleboro, who is on vacation this week and couldn't join us. So that committee is a committee of the Balance of State Continuum of Care, supported by the Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont, and it brings together state agencies, service providers, and young people with lived experience to coordinate our statewide youth homelessness response. So some of the members of our coalition, the Vermont Coalition of Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs, who are directly funded through our work, are here today. But we also have youth service providers who are not funded by VCRIP, who are part of that committee to end youth homelessness, who are also present today. So we have a broad range of youth service providers here today. And I'm here today to do three things. Briefly introduce our work, share what youth homelessness looks like in Vermont, and outline where the state legislature's partnership is most needed right now, in my opinion. So first, VCRIP, we're a statewide coalition of community-based organizations serving youth and young adults experiencing homelessness across Vermont's balance of state continuum of care. So we don't work at all in the Chittenden County Homelessness Alliance spectrum, handles that ably. Our network spans, and you've gotten to know a little bit about the continuum of care in this committee, that there are federally funded continua of care, the Chittenden County continuum, and then the balance of state continuum, and you're advocating that we combine. But so you know, you can understand that because we're located in the balance of state COC, we can't send youth into Chittenden County from other parts of the state because of the continuum of care, the difference in the continuum of care. Our network spans rural regions and small towns, and our providers are often the only youth-specific services providers in their communities. The VCRIP network was founded in 1981 and only receives federal funding. At one point, through VCRIP, every county's youth had access to a teen drop-in center, emergency shelter, transitional housing, comprehensive supportive services, and ongoing case management after exiting a program. But federal funding has remained level for decades for these programs for youth, specifically for youth ages 12 to 17. So our coalition has scaled back. So now we only provide services for unaccompanied homeless youth aged 12 to 17 in the NEK, Washington, and Windham counties. In the past several years, we've also received new HUD funding, the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, that has allowed us to provide housing and supportive services for youth 18 to 24 in those counties that were already providing services to unaccompanied homeless youth, as well as Franklin and Rutland counties. The broader network of youth services providers who serve homeless youth across the state cover almost every county, though. There's some homeless youth-centered programming in every county except for Lamoille County. You'll hear about, actually, I think the Education Committee is going to hear about that a little bit. I'd be happy to talk more about that if you have any questions. So all of these service providers through federal, state, or private funding across Vermont support a continuum of care that includes street outreach, emergency shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and long-term stabilization. It's a patchwork, though, of funding, and you could ask any of these providers here today how that all fits together at their specific agency, because it looks different in every local housing coalition, which I think you're becoming familiar with that terminology as well. For the VCRIP network of agencies, we also, our small administrative team, which includes myself and Representative McGill and Liz Keck, who is somewhere in the building today, supporting everybody who's here. We also provide the connective tissue between these agencies through technical assistance, data coordination, performance monitoring, and system design to ensure that the services function as a coherent statewide response rather than as a patchwork. So even though there is this patchwork of funding, we have maintained VCRIP and then built this committee to end youth homelessness to bring youth homelessness service providers together and try to maintain as much continuity as possible across the state. Despite the patchwork of funding. So alongside this work, the Committee to End Youth Homelessness serves as a coordinating body for the COCs, guiding strategy, aligning policy, and centering youth voice. And then in addition, we have a youth action board, young people who have experienced homelessness themselves. They're not advisors in name only. They actively shape program design, policy priorities, and system improvements. And if we're going to change policy for the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program or for our Unaccompanied Homeless Youth Basic Center Program, they have to sign off on those changes. So second, what youth homelessness looks like in Vermont. It's often hidden here. It doesn't look like what people expect. I think stereotypical visions of like what youth homelessness looks like in large urban areas, it's not like that. We don't have any shelters, for example, for anyone under the age of 18. All emergency shelter in that is available in Vermont to unaccompanied homeless youth is provided in people's homes, called host homes. So many young people, and 18 to 24, technically folks that age can go into adult shelters, but I personally don't think that's a great place for transition age youth. And more agencies are developing shelter opportunities for this age group. A lot of them funded by HOP. So you could hear about that today too. So most young people are couch surfing, staying in unsafe or unstable situations, or moving frequently between temporary arrangements. Others are exiting systems like foster care, the juvenile justice system, or mental health care, and without stable housing to return to. So this is not just a housing issue, although housing is a big problem for youth in Vermont. The ability to get an apartment at the age of 18 on your own is really challenging, especially if you don't come from a family that has a bunch of resources to provide to you to aid transition. And many of the youth who enroll in the coordinated entry system and receive services from agencies around the state became homeless because they couldn't find housing, or they got evicted, or they were in a housing situation, but were in an abusive relationship or something like that, and then couldn't find new housing. But beyond just housing supply, it's deeply interconnected with our education systems, workforce instability, behavioral health needs, and family conflict. So a young person who loses housing is far more likely to disengage from school. They're more likely to experience exploitation, involvement with justice system, and long-term economic instability. And in a state like Vermont, where rental vacancy rates are low and transportation options are limited, the path back to stability is really difficult. But youth homelessness is solvable, and we know what works. When young people have access to stable housing paired with really good supportive services that are youth-centered, trauma-informed, and flexible, they achieve stability at high rates. They return to school, they find employment, they reconnect with supportive adults, and they build a foundation for long-term independence. So I know that we've talked a lot in the legislature this session and last session about how to align services across the whole state. And one of the reasons that we organized this Youth Homelessness Awareness Day was in recognition that there hasn't been enough conversation about the service alignment that's needed for this age group and how important it is, especially if you want to put it in the barest policy terms, return on investment and intervention at this age group, interrupting and resolving housing instability for the first time in a young person's adult life, when their brains haven't even fully formed yet, is a powerful intervention. And it's actually pretty affordable. I'd say on average, our services can be provided to a youth, like rent 12 months of housing plus wraparound services for about $25,000 per youth.
Representative Logan, I just want to make sure that we have time for all the other witnesses. So if you could wrap it up, that'd be great.
So my final couple sentences. So Vermont has already built much of the foundation need to solve the problem. And so with continued partnership from the legislature, especially while we're experiencing instability at the federal level, we can ensure that every young person in our state has a safe place to live and a real path forward. So thanks. I'm happy to answer questions, but I know we need to move on as well.
Right, yeah, I'm going to actually ask people to hold all the questions to the end to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from everyone, because we have a full slate of witnesses all afternoon. Thank you, Representative Logan. If you could submit your comments to Lori, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Riley.
We're gonna
Are
actually
we
have,
not?
let's actually, yeah.
Step up to.
Right here, Riley. Thank you for being here this afternoon, Riley.
Hello, my name is.
Riley? Can you turn around here and just sit down in the chair?
Yeah.
The camera will get you, no worries.
Profile. Yeah, that's the camera too, Riley.
All right, hello, my name is Riley Campo. I used to be homeless and was without stable housing for several years on and off. During this time, I moved in and out of temporary housing, lived in my car through both cold winters and hot summers, and relied on hotel vouchers, which were truly life-saving, especially during winter months. Now, thanks to Star Garden and Housing Navigation with NKeys, I am housed and have my own apartment and finally able to focus on my next steps in building a stable future. I believe it is extremely important that the state continues to supporting hotel programs, shelter programs, and increasing funding for low-income housing. There's genuinely not enough affordable housing for everyone, and far too many people are still homeless or without safe, stable homes. These programs make a real difference and can be the bridge between the homelessness and stability, just as they were for me. And that's all I have.
That's good. Thank you very much, Riley.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Riley. So do you have a,
Favor's gonna jump in real quick.
okay, Favor's not on the list.
I sent the, yes. Julie instructed me to be quick.
I was gonna say, because I didn't know if we're, Favor, are you gonna be reading the testimony from a couple of the other folks? Okay, all right, we have some written testimony from people with lived experience who weren't able to be here today. That I want to make sure that we at least get to take a look at those. So go ahead.
And I can be very quick. Representative Logan already said a lot of what I brought here to share with you. So what I will quickly share is the services that Elevate is providing in Washington County and statewide, and then talk about what is still needed. At Elevate, we function under what we're calling a community of care. All of our programs are interconnected, serving a young person from when they first need someone to talk to when they maybe start using substances, to when they maybe become homeless or are thinking about running away, and beyond into housing and stability. We have quite a few programs specifically for folks who are 18 to 24, but far fewer for young people who are under 18. And that's what I want to address right now. The services that we provide for young people under 18 are the Teen Center, the Basement Teen Center here in Montpelier. We're hoping to open up a teen center in Barrie as well. So fingers crossed that you all vote that through. And we provide counseling through our Country Roads counseling program. And that's the short-term post-home shelter program that Representative Logan mentioned. And we also provide some substance use treatment for folks who are under 18. And that's it. So what she mentioned earlier is what that's not it at all. We also have Return House, which is, Jesse's going to talk about that later, Return House, which is housing for young people who are in DCF custody, aging out of DCF custody, and that's in Barrie. We don't have housing programs beyond the Return House and beyond our shelter program. So that means that people who are 16 who are not involved in DCF have no place to go after they stay in our host homes. And that's a real failing in our community. And it's a gap that we need to fill because the young people that we're seeing are increasingly in need of housing support.
Yeah, no questions right now, please. I'm wanting to make sure that we hit all the witnesses. So,
Sounds good.
thank you.
You all have met me before, but I haven't handed out my flyer.
All right.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Favor. Are we now having Heather's? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to be reading a statement for Star, who has been working with Riley. I'll start with hers and then I'll go on to a personal story of a young woman that we helped at NCSS. So good morning, or good afternoon. And this is in Star's voice. So every day I work with youth and young adults ages 18 to 24 who are experiencing homelessness. These young people are trying to build their futures, finishing school, finding jobs, learning life skills needed to live independently. But one major barrier stands in their way: safe, stable housing. As a housing navigator, I guide them through the process of finding and maintaining housing. But the reality is there simply aren't enough affordable units. Many of the young people I work with are up against additional barriers, no rental history, no credit, and often no family to fall back on. And so they wait. They wait for an opening, for an opportunity, for someone to say yes. Programs like the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program help bridge that gap. They provide critical support, resources, and real pathways out of homelessness. But the need continues to grow and the resources are not keeping up. I've seen what happens when a young person finally gets the keys to their own place. It's not just housing, it's stability, it's dignity, it's the foundation they need to move forward with their lives. If we truly believe that every young person deserves a safe place to call home, then we must continue to invest in the programs and supports that make that possible. Thank you, Star Barton Northeast Kingdom Youth Services. And then I'm just going to briefly introduce myself and not read my viewpoint because I want to focus on the youth story. I'm Heather Getty. I'm team leader of adolescent services at NCSS up in St. Albans, Vermont. I've been at the agency for 15 years and been in my current position for 10, seen a lot of trends and worked with a lot of youth. We've just housed the youth on April 1st. So I was very excited that she said I could share her story. So let me share the story of a young single mother who came to our program through a referral from our local coordinated entry team. She spent nearly 3 years without stable housing while raising 2 small children. She couch surfed with family and friends, relied on the state motel voucher program, and most recently spent several months in a shelter. She was hanging on by a thread. Homelessness doesn't mean lacking shelter. It can block every path forward. During her 3 years unhoused, she was unable to focus on anything but survival. This meant she couldn't complete her education or pursue meaningful employment. When you're in survival mode, you cannot plan, you cannot grow, you can't parent the way that you want to. After she was referred to our housing navigation program, which is funded through VCRIP, a case manager helped her apply for a youth rapid rehousing subsidy, also funded through VCRIP. Shortly after being approved for the subsidy, her case manager went out on medical leave. And as the case manager's team leader, I stepped in to ensure continuity of care and worked with multiple community partners to identify available rental units and see the process through. She moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with her children on April 1st. When I recently checked in with her, she told me that moving into her own apartment has been life-changing, and those were her words. She said she can finally breathe again. She's no longer stuck in survival mode. She's now making plans to earn her high school diploma, find work, save for a car. She reports that her children are thriving. The difference in her voice from our first conversation to our most recent one was evident. She sounded happy and hopeful. Housing is not the finish line for her. It's the starting line. Without a stable place to sleep, nothing else is possible. With it, everything becomes possible. It truly took a village to house this family.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing the story of people who aren't able to be here in person. Christina.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today and the time that you are all giving in recognition of the experiences of youth homelessness in our state. My name is Christina Brown. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Spectrum Youth and Family Services. At Spectrum, we serve over 1,300 youth each year between the ages of 12 and 30 years old, with services that focus on prevention and intervention, life skills, and basic needs. We provide crisis stabilization, employment coaching, outpatient mental health and substance use counseling, mentoring, affinity spaces, food and material resources, and supportive housing services, including up to 30 beds for youth experiencing homelessness in Chittenden County and an additional 10 in Franklin County. We provide services through the lens of positive youth development with an emphasis on trauma-informed care, recognizing the unique strengths, challenges, social, emotional, and cognitive milestones of teens and young adults, and catering our programs to match these needs. At Spectrum, we recognize the compounding impacts of trauma on the developing minds of the youth we serve, and we pride ourselves in providing responsive, supportive programming that meets the youth where they are at, keeping their dignity, autonomy, and voices at the center of our work. On any given day in the drop-in center in St. Albans, we see 20 to 30 young people, many of them high school students, without a safe alternative to spend their time after classes let out. On a single night in our Burlington emergency shelters, 18 youth are sleeping safely, relieved to be indoors. The average week of a case manager at Spectrum will have them driving from one end of the county to the other, meeting youth at the shelters, in their schools, in their homes, or even in the hospital, helping them find stability and work towards their goals. When I think of what youth homelessness awareness means in my daily work life, I think about the 22-year-old single father self-paying in a hotel to maintain partial custody of his child. I think about the 19-year-old who exited state custody and entered our shelter without so much as an ID. I think about the 18-year-old fleeing domestic violence, unable to stay in the local family shelters with their mother and siblings because they are now, by all legal definitions, an adult. I think about the many joyful moments, big and small. The young person who recently moved into an apartment after 2 years of living in Spectrum housing. The other who just celebrated a birthday with ice cream cake at the shelter. We are there when they bring home an A on their math exam, and we are there when they lose the job that they've been counting on. We are there in moments of deep grief and despair, and we are there when they experience the elation of finding a caring community. Youth homelessness awareness is seeing these young people for the full, rich, and complex lives they lead, often in the margins of our communities. Overlooked and stigmatized for the intersections of their identities as adolescent and homeless. Today, I urge you to move beyond awareness and towards action. As a community, we need to recognize the unique and vitally important developmental stage of adolescence in shaping an individual's future. In the state of Vermont, we must prioritize solutions to end youth homelessness. Data from the National Network of Youth has shown us that half of all adults who are homeless had their first experience of homelessness before the age of 25. The time to invest in solutions to end youth homelessness is now. We must center the lived experiences of young people, listen to youth who have experienced homelessness, recognize their pivotal contributions and expertise, and honor their autonomy. We must invest resources in the services that are developmentally aligned with the needs of this specific population. Youth homelessness and the solutions to address it must be catered to their stage of development. We need to uplift the work of youth service providers and build on their impacts by continuing to support programming that is youth-centered and explore new ways of offering services that do the same. We must develop policies and pass legislation that helps to prevent youth from entering homelessness early. This means prioritizing permanence for youth in custody, focusing on kinship relationships, school-based resources for children who are unstably housed, supporting the rights of transition-aged youth to access needed care independently when necessary, safeguarding the financial benefits for youth in foster care, and especially protecting LGBTQ+ youth who are over 120% more likely to experience homelessness than their peers. An investment in ending youth homelessness is a long-term investment in a data-driven solution to curb the rise of homelessness across all age demographics. Awareness is the first step. Many service providers are leaps and bounds ahead of mere awareness. We are in community with these young people every day, and we need others to join us. Thank you for taking the time to hear this testimony and to bring greater visibility to a population that has too often gone unseen. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Can you make sure to send your testimony in to Lori?
I will, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alexa.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just heard from Christina about all the wonderful work we're doing at Spectrum. And so I would like to take this chance to provide some of my perspective and experience and that of my clients as a direct service case manager. Our emergency shelter, The Landing, has 4 double bedrooms for a total of 8 clients in communal living, while our rapid rehousing project, the Pearl Street Residence, has 8 single occupancy bedroom leases with a shared communal area. Previously, the Pearl Street Residence youth could obtain a Section 8 voucher at the end of their 1-year lease. However, due to changes on the federal level, this is no longer the case. Though my role as case manager is primarily focused on navigating the complex housing systems, much of my time is spent working with these young people to teach them the independent living skills needed to ensure that any housing they do find is successful. We cover topics you may expect, from budgeting to cooking or learning how to drive, while we cover many others that may surprise you, such as how to operate a washing machine, how to call a doctor's office, how to wash their hair, or how to appeal a 3 Squares decision because homelessness is no longer a qualifier for benefits. Over the past 2 years, the average length of stay at the Landing was 8 months. Currently, half of the youth in the program have been involved in Spectrum supported housing for over a year, with many of them having spent months at our nightly emergency shelter prior to their bed in the Landing becoming available. That is more than a year of living in a room with no door and a randomly assigned stranger in the bed next to theirs, where they are woken up and asked to leave from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. But even this is better than where they came from. 18-year-olds freshly out of foster care, young people kicked out or run away from harmful families, fleeing domestic violence, or out of couches to crash on. Without Spectrum, their options in Chittenden County would be an adult shelter with others, decades their senior, or sometimes the street. When this is how you enter the homeless system, it is almost impossible to get a head start. Everyone deserves safe and stable housing, but for young people experiencing homelessness, the barriers are many, and their age and experience put them at a unique disadvantage. The youth I work with are tasked with navigating education, employment, physical and mental health care, social development, and community resources, all without knowing if they will have a place to call home and before their brain is even fully developed. Many of these young people have spent their formative years trying to survive. They have little to no job history, some have no high school diploma, or cannot work due to untreated physical and mental illness. This makes it nearly impossible to get the resources one needs, for example, for a security deposit and first month's rent, to sign a lease. This past year, I worked with 2 young people who were each able to sign leases for studio apartments. 230 square feet at $998 a month. Heat and electric not included, nor the price of internet they need to finish their online high school diplomas while working 30 hours a week and being active members in their faith communities. This equates to about half of their incomes, not including the cost of furniture, transportation, or food. Luckily, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity was able to pay their security deposits, but that money is not always available. Even when the money is available, these young people I serve have no rental history, no credit history, and sometimes no time to build either before aging out of youth homeless services into adult services that assume they have the wherewithal to independently navigate housing systems so complex I am paid to know them. They must compete against college students with parents co-signing, while they do not even have an emergency contact to alert when they are sitting in the ER for hours waiting for an evaluation because they cannot stop thinking that they want to die. Spectrum can help 8 youth at a time build that rental history in our rapid rehousing project. And we can teach them the fundamentals of credit building or refer them to counseling, but we can never replace the support of an unpaid, caring adult. Someone who would have taught them how to set boundaries or encouraged them to achieve their goals. My clients want to become marine biologists, paramedics, veterinarians, parents, and artists. But years of lost familial and social support breeds hopelessness. This is especially compounded as my clients see their childhood peers hit milestones, graduate, and thrive. Spectrum is doing all we can to support these young people as they search for housing and search for themselves with counseling programs, mentoring, and case management. With our amazing community partnerships, none of this would be possible. But what these young people need is stability, safety, and time that shelter sometimes cannot afford. On behalf of myself and the young people I serve, I thank you for your willingness and interest in hearing their experience.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Jesse.
Hi, everyone. I'm not very good at going as fast as everybody else, but I'm going to do my best because I don't have a testimony to read. But my name is Jesse. Jesse Warren, he, him pronouns. I am the director of Return House, which is a program at Elevate Youth Services right here in this county. So I'm going to start off by asking you to go back to your 16-year-old self for a minute, challenge by choice, but think about the person that you were at that time and what that was like for you. And I'm seeing a lot of faces. Maybe that wasn't a great time, maybe it was. Now I want you to think about the program that I run and the kids that we're working with who are in DCF custody. So for whatever reason, there's myriad of reasons why kids come into custody. But I feel like what sticks out to me is that our services and our world isn't made to keep families together. So a lot of times the kids that come into our program, it was no fault of their own. So they have this added layer to their life, this lack of normalcy where they can't live with their parents for whatever reason. So we don't have a lot of foster parents in the state of Vermont. If a foster family can't be identified for a kid, where do they go? What do you think? I think this is something that we often don't think enough about, displaced youth. But my program works with kids ages 16 to 18 years old. So if they can't live with their parents during their formative years and there's no foster parent, they will go to usually 204 Depot. Does anyone know this program? It's essentially a holding facility down in southern Vermont, short term. So if there's nowhere for a kid to go, if somebody comes into custody, this is an emergency, they can't live at home, they can't sleep at home tonight, that's where they go. Extremely restricted. You know, they can't wear shoes, can't have shoelaces, no doors on the bedrooms, like things like that. They have to ask to go to the bathroom, like ask to do all of these things. Other things that I've seen are kids being staffed in hotel rooms. So DCF workers will take shifts where they, if it's a minor, they can't be alone, somebody under 18. So they will fund a hotel room and DCF workers will essentially sit in there and babysit or sit with a kiddo until they identify placement. I've also seen kids be housed or staffed in the DCF offices, kids sleeping in the offices in a makeshift bed because there's nowhere for them to go. So another option that's more long-term is Return House, the Return House program. It's fairly new. Similar programs are Tea House in Burlington. There's a couple other long-term shelters. We have 5 beds that are available at any given time. And I would say it's a lower level of care. So oftentimes we house children coming from out-of-state programs. So Stetson, for example, which is in Massachusetts, or maybe the Park Street program in Rutland, which serves kids with sexualized behaviors. So they complete a treatment program, and for whatever reason, they're too old to be adopted or they're too old to go to a foster home. And so that's how they end up at Return House. They do need to be bought in a little bit, but the main component, the treatment component to the Return House program is independent living, as well as access to normalcy. So going to high school, a lot of our kids go to Spalding or the C alternative program. We have them meet with case manager every week to help them get their driver's license, help them get a job. All of our kids right now are working part-time, which is awesome. They have access to meet with their friends in the community or on our property, just as if someone were to, a teenager would like have a sleepover or have their friends over, or, you know, something like that. We help them, similar to what you were saying about independent living skills. A lot of the kids don't know how to do laundry, cook, things like that, because they're transition aged. Like, you know, as soon as they come into the program, we have to be planning for their exit, essentially. Where are they going to live? What natural supports do they have? Because when they exit DCF custody, they will no longer have a DCF worker. They will no longer have us or the housing that we provide. And so how can we help them bolster their circle of support with more natural supports? Maybe that means reconnecting with their family if they're safe people. That might mean doing a family find and identifying long lost cousins or like family friends, anybody who can be a part of this child's life in order to plan for where they're going to live after they turn 18, which is, I think, how this program and, how this testimony relates to what y'all are doing. Because oftentimes, even with all the support that we are providing at the program, it's really hard to get young people not to exit programs like this to homelessness. I think a big component of that is due to their lack of natural supports and lack of access to the housing in general, lack of rental history, funds, things like that. I was gonna ask for questions, but I know we're not doing that, so I think I'll end there.
We actually are at the point of asking questions. Well, I guess it's
hosted.
yeah, I was gonna say, we have a couple of additional pieces of testimony from people with lived experience who weren't able to be here. So I really encourage members to read that, but we have a few minutes before Ledge Council gets here on another bill. And so I just would like to open it up for questions because we had a number of witnesses this afternoon. Representative Noyes.
Yeah, Rep. Logan brought up the fact that there's no services around like this in Lamoille County. And I was wondering if anyone might know why. I know she's not here, but that was my question for her. Here she is.
You, Kate.
Yes, what's up?
Representative Noyes has a question for you.
Sorry. You had said that there was no services around runaway youth for in Lamoille County, and I just wondered if you knew why.
So for 12 to 17-year-olds, when I spoke about the level federal funding that there was for services for 12 to 17-year-olds, which just includes up to 21 days of emergency shelter, that funding has stayed level for decades. And so ECRIP receives that funding for the state and then distributes it around the state. We used to serve agencies in every part of the state to provide those services. And now we can provide funding to 3 agencies. We just cover the NEK, Washington County and Windham County now. So that's a big gap in services. And then in terms of services specifically for transition age youth, young adults, 18 to 24 years old, we have gone through a cycle of having a couple of providers. So Lamoille Family Center did that shelter provision. And we tried to bring them on when we got that new funding for from HUD for 18 to 24-year-old housing services, and they just didn't feel like it was a good fit. And then we struggled for multiple years to find a provider who could adequately provide services to homeless youth in Lamoille County. And again, same story. We started receiving that HUD funding in 2019 and level funded for supportive services that, the amount of funding that we get for rent goes up every year so that we can continue to pay landlords more money when they raise rents. But the supportive services budget line in the federal funding does not increase. So we've had to restrict the number of agencies that we provide youth homelessness demonstration program funding. And now we're down to 5 out of an original 9.
Could I make an addition to that?
Sure.
Elevate also runs the statewide youth and transition program, and we're contracted with Lamoille Restorative Center to provide case management services for youth in Lamoille County. That doesn't include housing, but it does include resource navigation. So we do recognize that that's a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Representative Steady.
So Representative Logan, you testified it costs about $25,000 per youth for rent and other expenses. What services do you do to help the youth get a job? And if they do get a job, how do they contribute back to the state for their free housing?
Every agency braids together a range of funding sources to provide a broad set of services. So every agency in this room might receive funding from us to provide housing case management. So we make sure that that person has a dedicated case manager who follows them through the housing navigation process and finding a home, learning all of the independent skills that they need in order to maintain their housing, providing ongoing case management throughout the duration of receiving rental assistance, and then ongoing case management after to ensure that youth can remain stably housed after they've exited the program when their time has run out. In addition to having that case manager, most agencies have, I mean, you could ask any agency here, the range of funding that they have, jobs, programs, I mean, you name it.
So once they get a job, like McDonald's, $18 an hour.
Yeah.
How do they contribute back towards the housing?
Well, they have to pay
They do.
30% of their income minimum to rent.
Because
Yeah.
you want to teach them dignity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Respect.
No, if a youth has no income at the time that they enroll in the project, then we make sure that they have enough money to pay rent. But we're like, the goal is always to get youth to the point where they
on there.
provide for themselves.
Okay.
And we, federal policy requires that we cap that percentage at 30% of their adjusted income.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious, and this actually is, probably multiple witnesses need to address this, with the reduction in available rental vouchers, creating and helping youth get access to stable housing, where they could contribute up to 30% of their income, is more and more difficult these days. And I'm just wondering if you've seen a change in the length of time or the accessibility of housing vouchers for youth with limited resources. Any of you direct service providers?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think Alexa spoke to that in her testimony as well, that just as an example, our landing program, which Alexa is the case manager for the youth who live in that program. It's our emergency shelter that also has a life skills component to it. Moving folks into independent housing is the goal of that program. In 2019, the average length of stay was 90 days. In 2026, the average length of stay, 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
I can speak on behalf of a couple agencies who aren't here today, who weren't able to be here. So Addison County Parent-Child Center, they self-fund their own transitional living program for 18 to 24 years olds up to 1 year of transitional housing, and the housing authority there paired a voucher with for each use. So if they successfully completed their 1 year transitional housing program, then they automatically received a voucher so that they could move out into their own apartment. And that is they still have access to that, but it's going to go away eventually. That's the last I heard from Donna Bailey, who's the executive director there. And then similar situation, Bobby Joe Scalato is the executive director of the Mentor Connector in Rutland City. And they also self-fund for transitional living program units. Same thing. They didn't have an agreement with the housing authority in the way that ACPCC did. But it was just part of the process, was get them enrolled in transitional housing and then get them enrolled in get them on the wait list for HCV. And that's been the same for a lot of our agencies, is that the exit strategy from our rental assistance program, often an HCV. And now that's not an option. The wait list is closed, and then the prioritization often means that youth are at the bottom of the list.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. You have a question? Go ahead, Representative Bishop.
I do. I think that would be for you, Favor. You referenced, I think, under the heading of counseling, the short-term host home model. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I'm curious who are the hosts that my son's high school classmate or my niece needs support and they're coming into my home, or am I taking in, I've just raised my hand and said, I'll take anyone in? What's it look like?
Our host homes are vetted and trained volunteers
Okay.
in various communities. So if you wanted to be a host home, all you need to do is call us and get the short process started.
What's the training and support look like for those families?
Every young person who enters into the short-term host home program has a counselor who also serves as a case manager for the young person and also support for the host home providers during that time. And we're able to house people for up to 21 days, but more often we're at 14 days.
Thank you.
Ken, I could say a little bit more about that. This is a federally funded program, and so any host home provider who volunteers for the program has to receive training in positive youth development and trauma-informed care. And what background check? A background check before they can serve as a host home provider, and then they also receive a stipend, a small stipend to provide services. And I'm trying to think what else goes on. Oh yeah, and they have to comply with a full set of safety regulations for their home.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who testified this afternoon. We appreciate it. Appreciate really the work that you do, and particularly Riley, I want to say thank you for being here this afternoon, sharing your story, and wish you all the best with your apartment. And I hope everything goes well for you. Okay, committee, we're going to shift now to some work on another bill, S-198. So thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Stepped on it, probably.
Hi, Jen.
Do we have anything? I don't see any S-198.
Last week I posted the other committees.
S-198 as
Okay, Todd, can you grab the door? Todd.
Doors.
I just wanted to print it off.
Jen, can you refresh my memory? Did Commerce Committee actually make changes? 198?
As passed by the Senate? Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay, all right, so that's the version we want.
Yep, I posted them on Friday. If you want them now, I can post them for today, but it's gonna take a minute.
No, I can go to Friday.
Yeah. Well, both of them posted as passed by the Senate and the.
Here it is. Pass by Senate.
Yeah, for me, I just care about the one that is, we're currently working with, yeah.
Just on the.
Which is Commerce, and that's on Friday, okay. Thank you. So, committee members, I'm going to direct your attention to the one that says House Committee on Commerce Economic Development Committee Report. All right, that's the current version that is going through the House, and that's the version we're going to mark up. Okay, so Lori, I don't know if anybody else wants a hard copy, but
Yes, please.
markup is easier with a hard copy.
We
Okay,
posted in print.
okay, thank you. So folks, we've had a bit of testimony on this bill. And we should have a little bit of discussion, and also we're gonna just kind of go through this section by section and try to be organized about it. I know, it's a unique thing here in the State House.
I'm trying to be organized.
Well, about markup, how we approach a bill and all that kind of stuff. So we've had some requests from different entities, including the Attorney General's office, some suggestions from advocates around language. And there was a request by House Commerce that they thought about something after the bill left their committee. And I asked Jen to go ahead and put that in the version that we're going to, actually, it's not in the version that we just pulled up, but Jen has included it. So in the version that she's working from.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I missed, what was that part that you said was Jenna's?
House Commerce thought about a provision, which I think I forwarded to everybody. And if I didn't, I will. Always makes me nervous when you look down and start looking for it. Representative Bishop, that they thought about after the bill left their committee. And so they asked if we could include it here rather than it going back there for another amendment. So I said that we would certainly be willing to do that. Hold on just a second.
Lori, I'm in the Zoom room when you get a chance. That's okay.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't.
Yeah, I kind of mixed up stuff.
Oh, and I see, Jen, I didn't see this earlier, that we have a new draft that incorporates that. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
No, we don't.
Oh, no, we don't?
No,
No, we don't? Okay.
no, I don't believe we do. I don't think I put it in anything.
You sent me one this morning.
I didn't send you anything.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's last week. My apologies. I take a day off and my brain goes squishy on me. What can I tell you? All right, now I'm forwarding to the committee, which I did not do last month.
Lori, did you print a couple?
They should, I think Ray's good.
Fantastic, thank you.
Printed like 4.
Fantastic.
Okay. I just forwarded to your email what the House Commerce Committee wants to see in a new version. Okay, it's about internet sales and compliance activity. Okay, so why don't we and that's in, is that going to be a new section?
It'll go into an existing section.
Okay.
I will pull that one up too. We can look at it when we get to that part of the.
Okay.
bill, if that's helpful.
Thank you. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and pull up the bill when you have a chance.
All right. Great, yes, I put the bill on the screen. And for the record, Jen Kirby from the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Okay, so we're going to start off with definitions.
Yes, so section 1 amends, or at least puts into the bill, all of 7 VSA chapter 40. So the first section there under tobacco products is the definitions section. And then the first definition is an existing definition of tobacco substitute that takes on some additional provisions.
Are there any thoughts about this definition? So Jen, can you refresh my memory? Did we not have any definition of tobacco substitute in statute?
We do. This is just so you can see the words tobacco substitute means are not underlined. They're existing law. So under existing law, tobacco substitute means products. And then including, and then if you go to the top of page 2 where the underlining stops, electronic cigarettes or So that's our existing definition. So the
Includes.
existing definition says, yes, it says,
I'm talking about all the stuff on, that's underlined on page 1.
all of that is new language that we added to the definition of tobacco substitute.
Okay, so it's previously,
So to some extent, it's expanding, to some extent, it is clarifying.
okay, all right, that's helpful, I got.
There's
confused
2
by
more
that.
copies here, folks.
To the extent that it's 8A2, intended for human consumption, then it lists out a number of ways one may consume the product. And I assume we're doing that because it's outpaced what was previously in the legislation. Is there any thought to just saying product intended for human consumption?
I think some of the illustrative ways of consuming are helpful because people may not. I think it helps ground people in what we're talking about and in some of the specifics, particularly around smoking or, absorbing their new oils. People can rub on their skin to absorb through their skin. There's the tobacco pouches that suck on or absorb through gum tissue. So we have the catch-all as well, but I think it could be very broad to say any product that is intended for human consumption, period, because that is much broader than.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a way to stay ahead of the
Ever-changing.
innovation, if you will.
Right, well, that's why we have the catch-all.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty broad.
So I have I don't know, are there methods of injection?
Well, if they are to be consumed in that manner,
Yeah.
not that I'm aware of, but
I'm
I'm.
not trying to make the list
expert.
longer. I just am wondering, I agree with Doug that it seems like it would be smart, or, we'll just always be behind this list, probably.
Well, it's or consuming in any other manner.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That is our catch-all. We will continue to be specific where we are aware of specifics. And we will continue to
I see,
use the
okay,
catch-all
all right.
to capture anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna move on. Not seeing any no's, all right. All right, 1 page down, Jen. That's
All right.
good.
And then the good news is, I don't know if you want to look at the second half of the definition on page 2, but once we get past that, the definitions are really just being carried over from existing definitions in the tobacco tax chapter, Title 32.
Part of my brain is remembering what we did in S18, and we did like a lot of this definition stuff in S18, and so I'm thinking like, oh, but didn't we already do this? And then I'm like, yes, we did, but then that bill didn't get it all the way through, and
We did
so
it
that's.
stay right in these seats, and then it did not become.
Yes.
So yes,
Yeah,
you were
so this is.
definitely remembering correctly.
This is a deja vu. I know, this is why I keep calling back up, is like, yes, we talked about pouches, liquids, all of that kind of stuff, yes. Okay. All right,
All right, so then we have all these wholesaler definitions that, other than just a couple of language updates or references to this chapter, are the same as what's in Title 32.
so I'm just refreshing people's memory, because it's been a few days. We're bringing that in from tax statute into this statute, because we're transferring responsibility from tax department to liquor and law.
Exactly.
And that's why it's underlined?
2027. Yes, because it's new to Title 7. And so since we're adding it to Title 7 where it doesn't currently exist.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. That's why I keep reminding you, it's not really new
Not
to the
really.
law. It's just law that's in a different part of the statutes. Because you can't tell that by looking at it.
And that doesn't mean that we can't adjust it, so.
No, exactly.
Right.
Doesn't mean you
You
can't
have-
adjust. This is very true.
This is the time when you bring up those things. If you have a sense of wanting to change or adjust or have discussion about something. And just so you know, I am taking silence as consent. That we're moving, okay?
Yes, although, hold on just a minute, if I remember, you had a question at one point.
I'm going to leave it up to you, Jen, to tell us when we're at the space where we've gotten feedback.
Yeah,
from areas.
I think the one thing that I had wanted to flag here and forgot, because it was in my markup when I was downstairs and I forgot to bring up here, is All of our definitions around wholesalers do not include tobacco substitutes, and I'm asking the regulator types if we should be including tobacco substitutes there. It sort of seems like we should, especially with the internet sales issue, so just
If they, well, I guess,
we don't tax them with stamps, that's why they haven't been in here, but I do think because of some of the limitations that are coming up later around wholesalers, and retail dealers, that we may need to include them, so I'm
I think as a placeholder,
squaring with the sides of the room.
yes, placeholder, we should. And I think we should take out things like new smokeless tobacco.
What it's called.
Is it still called new smokeless tobacco?
Called, well, in our statutes it is.
That's my point. Is it new? I mean, is there a product called new smokeless tobacco? Not being any, I do not use tobacco in any form, so I don't know the answer.
It's the tax definition, is that what you said? All right. Yes, I understand it's a tax definition. Thank you. I do think there were sort of the smokeless tobacco and then new smokeless tobacco, and they are two discrete products.
Wow.
No, aren't they? Yeah.
No, it's not a real thing. It's an adjective.
Okay, I think it's
according to.
I think it's maybe an adjective that's still continuing to be used in our enforcing our laws. So you may want to maintain it.
But we're changing the law to be more current.
I understand. We would need to go into I need to amend several other statutes
In order to do that.
and there may need to be some rule changes.
Okay, so maybe we don't want to do that at this moment, but
Possibly.
it's like we just said about another bill that we did with the health department. If the statutes need to be updated with current language, we should update them, but maybe we won't do that in the confines of this one bill. Maybe we should ask the Department of Liquor and Lottery to review and update the statutes to make them current language.
I do have a quick question though. Under wholesale dealer, we talk about what it means to be a wholesale dealer, but then at the end we write, but not by small quantity or parcel consumers of these products. Are we saying that wholesale dealers can't sell consumer direct?
Well, yeah, I mean, for one thing, yes, I think you have to sell to, I mean, if you want to sell consumer direct, you're a retailer, not a wholesaler.
It would be a retailer.
They'd be a retailer.
They would
But
need-
also you have to read the whole definition. It's a person
Right.
who imports or causes to be imported various items or sells them to wholesalers. But a person who basically who imports or causes to be imported into the state, any of these items, but not by small quantity or parcel to consumers of these products. So if you cause them to be imported to the state because you drive over the state line with them, you are not a wholesale dealer.
Right. But
You can't sell them to other people.
do we say wholesalers can't sell direct or does it automatically?
That's the scope. I think that's the scope of their license. In order to sell direct to consumers, you need a retail license.
Thank you.
So just to circle back to Jen's original question is, should we be looking at tobacco substitutes as being added to this?
I think so. I think the issue is that under the tax statutes, tobacco substitutes fall into the other tobacco products category. And so when I pulled the definitions over, we don't have other tobacco products that are a large group of items. So we need to add in all things I think that are in the tobacco substitute or tobacco products, other tobacco products category.
Okay.
So I will make a note to myself to do the cross-checking on that, and I'll check in with the state folks.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, and I think that may be throughout this section. All right, section 1002 is the license required for retail, specifying retail sale. Now that we're going to have wholesale dealers in this chapter as well. And the first change there is kind of have statute line up with existing law, which is that, or existing practice, which is that tobacco licenses and tobacco substitutes are valid for 1 year from the date of issue. They don't all expire at midnight on April 30th.
Okay.
And we have the changes that stop referring to incorporating tobacco licenses and tobacco substitute endorsements into liquor license forms and applications.
So just, I want to make sure people understand the policy change that's happening here. If you had a if you had a liquor license, which way did it go?
Yes, and if you had a liquor license, you did not have to pay extra for the tobacco license.
So now they're just being separated as two separate things. Liquor is one license, tobacco is another license.
Yeah, because everybody knows I hate to see anyone, not that I never smoke, I never drank anything, but I hate to see increased taxes and fees right now during these difficult times, and I'm not endorsing tobacco. Thank you. It's just that I think of.
Go ahead.
So just to be clear, so if you had a liquor license currently, you were allowed to sell tobacco products, and now we're just gonna split those off, and now you need both.
Didn't they have an endorsement before?
Yeah.
The endorsement is for the tobacco substitutes. So currently you can have a liquor dash tobacco license if you're selling. Oh, no, that's not it. I'm gonna, phone a friend on the side.
Phone a friend.
Hi, Angela from Liquor and Lottery. So there is no hyphen at this point. Hello.
Hi.
There's a little bit of a quirk in Title VII. We don't actually have a hyphenate license. You can see here, we're striking this liquor or tobacco license. There is a hyphen between those. We don't actually have that. There are very distinct licenses. If you want to sell liquor, you apply for and are essentially granted one of the numerous liquor licenses that we have in Title VII. If you want to sell tobacco, you must apply for a tobacco license. If you want to sell tobacco substitute products, you also apply, in addition to your tobacco license, for a tobacco substitute endorsement. Previously, under current statute, Department of Liquor and Lottery was not directed to assess a fee for the tobacco license application if the applicant had an active or pending liquor license application. It was for my time, but I believe the rationale was there isn't an additional administrative burden on the department. We are assessing your location to sell liquor. We drop a tobacco assessment into that work. This would, a little bit of a misnomer, but fully decouple those processes. They will now be assessed, continue to have a distinct license for sale of each of those regulated products, but also be assessed in all cases, regardless of their liquor license status, the tobacco license fee.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's very important that, there's always, or at least there currently is there's two licenses, so it's not a new license. It is, they will now be assessed a fee for the second license or for both now and not just one fee if you have one. Go ahead, Representative Bishop.
Will there be two separate review processes if outlet wants to sell liquor and tobacco?
I can get back to you on that. I would refer to our enforcement team on their inspection process.
What's the benefit of splitting it out?
In terms of application fee or inspection?
Other than the fact that we're going to charge fees and garner more revenue for the state, is there another advantage or another rationale behind splitting them
I
out?
would defer to the Attorney General's office and that on that.
They already are split.
But I'm just splitting out.
The licenses are separate now. So that we're not making a change to that.
But it sounds like there was some rationale historically that the review process is taking place anyway.
At the same time, so.
I'm curious whether that is still
the practice.
Still the practice.
I don't know.
Will be the practice going forward.
Can you get back to us on that from your enforcement folks?
Do you want to hear from the Attorney General or others?
If the Attorney General's office has something to say, for sure.
Thank you, Chair. Todd Davis from the Attorney General's office. Very quickly, Rep. Bishop. I think from a public health standpoint and encouragement of tobacco cessation, the goal is to say, look, if retailers want to sell this product that's incredibly addictive and detrimental to youth, they can pay for that license. But the concept of sort of jokingly having a buy one, get one, which is not how the department looks at it.
Right.
Was challenging from a public health perspective. And so that's the push is to say, you know, we allow it, it's a legal substance to use. We really want to push on retailers to do it conscientiously, and under SLC, there's much more proposed changes to how that regulation works. So that's the direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're gonna still continue with this endorsement concept.
Yes. It does stay in here separately unless.
I'm just curious why it's just not called a tobacco and tobacco substitute license.
What you mean, why it isn't a combined one?
I mean, because it's, I guess, looked at as a separate product. I guess there are people out there who only sell tobacco and they don't sell
Yes.
tobacco substitutes.
And for the same reason,
Yeah.
I would guess it would be the same reason, the public health perspective.
Yeah.
You kind of want
Yeah.
to call it out as a separate thing, especially the way it's marketed to kids.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Jen.
Sure.
So further down on page 4, this is striking out the references to liquor licenses in here and really just keeping the focus on the tobacco license. And it increases the fee amount for a tobacco license or renewal from $110 to $150, and for the tobacco substitute endorsement from $50 to $75. And it stops having the amounts paid to the municipality, which then turns around and sends it to the Division of Liquor Control, and instead just has it sent directly to the Division of Liquor Control, which is, I think, in practice, how it happens electronically now.
And committee members, you might recall that I asked the commissioner about when was the last time the fees were increased, and she did respond back with the dates. It's been more than 10 years, more like 12 years.
I
Since
think it was 2016. I think it was
I think
legislation from 2015 adjourned session, but
so we have the information from the commissioner that I forwarded to folks. Okay.
yes. And my understanding, again, I think she said this as well, of the amounts from the Joint Fiscal Office is the kind of inflation adjustment of 110 and 50 from that time.
From that time period.
And it will just make the prices go up, so maybe kids wouldn't be able to afford it, because of course, the person is going to put the money back into the product to get their money back. And it will hurt people in poverty and stuff, because that's usually the people that smoke it. And I'm not stereotyping, but it will hurt people of poverty, and it will discourage kids from buying it. So, because the owner will put the money back into the consumer.
Perhaps.
So that makes
Perhaps not.
sense.
Maybe not. We don't know. It's $40 for every year, 2 years. Is it?
Every year.
Every year, $40 a year. Okay, yes, Representative Noyes.
Just a quick process question on this. There's, obviously we're looking at these increased fees. We have possession of this bill, so I'll be reporting all of this, and then
It's gonna go next door.
it's gonna end up going next door.
Mhm.
Okay. But we can
And
talk more. I'm just
they-
trying to figure out, like, I'll be reporting the whole bill, and then if they have any changes, they'll be reporting those additional
Exactly.
amendments. Just
Exactly. Yeah.
just making sure.
If they make significant changes, you may not want to go into big detail.
You
Right,
might just say,
that's why.
Yeah.
this section will be amended.
Fine.
Yeah.
But if they like it,
They do.
Process. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
okay, so some more, again, cleaning up.
So the application is still,
So the person still applies to the legislative body of the municipality, but the fees get paid directly to the Division of
okay,
Liquor
that's the
Control.
part that I was wondering, is it seemed like you're separating that out. And so why isn't the application just made to the Department of Liquor and Lottery? And then the Department of Liquor and Lottery notifies the municipality.
So the municipality is the first clearing house for the application. We updated our licensing system in recent years. So the way that it works is the department, you apply through the department and the application is routed first to the municipality. But rather than the funds following the entire routing process of the application, they come and are held by the department. And the municipality clears that application and is then forwarded to the department for further action.
So they in fact do apply through the department,
Through our licensing.
through your portal.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, that's helpful, because the way I was reading this is that they are applying to the municipality.
Through us to them.
Right, I mean, the language says they apply to the legislative body, I think it sounds like from a practical standpoint, that application is provided to the municipality by the department.
It's actually, I don't know, are you saying that it's on the department's website? So would if somebody, just say I want to apply for a license. I go to DLL and fill out the information and then you send that to the municipality. Yeah, so I shouldn't say they apply to the municipality.
I think it depends how much you want to get into the details of where the application goes.
I guess I don't like passing a bill out of this committee that's got inaccurate information in it. So,
Okay, so we can talk about how to make it match the process more.
well, that's why I'm asking.
That's also changed recently, yes, so.
No, so the municipality still has to approve it to come to us for the application.
I realize that they have a role in the process. Does it say, but maybe we can dispense with this if it says.
Have it up on the screen.
First application shall first be reviewed by the legislative body of the municipality.
I'm looking at line, wait, folks. On page 4, on, lines 9 and 10, it says they apply to the legislative body of the municipality. And I guess essentially they are, but that's after they've already applied to the department that then sends the information to the, I mean, why can't we just say that if that's what the process is?
So could we just say shall apply to the legislative body of the municipality through the Department of Liquor and Lottery and or Division of Liquor Control and shall pay the following fees? Is that? Or should we discuss?
To get back to what we think, what language would follow up. I think the Norwalk's current reading statute is that our routing of the application maintains the local control element while also simplifying and standardizing a digital process.
Well, and maybe what we say is that DLL provides that online application process. There's got to be some language that clarifies that it's DLL is involved in that initial.
Right, maybe we say yes, using the department or the division, whatever it is.
Right.
Application process or online process.
I also think another thing that's confusing is if you're saying just a municipality, it's not a standard, like it wouldn't appear that it's a standard statewide process, that each municipality would have their own. And that is not the process. It's one application that's a statewide application that the municipality maybe reviews and approves, receives, reviews and approves, but they're not actually creating and maintaining an application.
So maybe we could say something like shall apply to the legislative body of the municipality on forms provided by the department or process provided by the department.
Yeah, we'll ask DLL to work with Jen on what language would be to sort of clarify and make that more representative of what actually happens.
So both in line 10 and 20.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, line 20 probably then would be accurate.
Correct.
At that point.
But
yeah,
they got to work together.
Right, exactly. See what happens when you provide too much information? Yeah. It's not too much, it's accurate. I mean, I guess I would like these to be, I would like the statute to represent what is happening in reality.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jen.
Okay.
Page 5.
Yep, so top of page 5. Again, this is striking through the municipal clerk forwarding fees to the commissioner. These are just going directly to the department. And so fees collected would still be deposited in the Liquor Control Enterprise Fund. And then we get to subsection E, which is a person who sells tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia without obtaining a tobacco license and a tobacco substitute endorsement as applicable in violation of this section. And then this takes it out of being a criminal offense and makes it a subject to a civil penalty. And it raises the maximums on those from not more than $200 for a first offense to not more than $2,000 for the first offense, and from not more than $500 for the first two, or for each subsequent, to not more than $5,000 for each subsequent offense.
Is tobacco paraphernalia defined someplace?
I believe so, but I'd have to look. I think it is.
The Liquor Control Enterprise Fund, you know, the history or why that is the most appropriate place now that we're separating out the two separate fees, but
I think that's the major fund that DLL uses to enforce and regulate the products under their control, which is alcohol and tobacco.
Those self-funded departments.
that's not them. Okay, yeah, so the title is only just slightly misleading because it only says liquor rather than beyond liquor. I guess.
Department of Liquor and Lottery, unfortunately, tobacco is not.
Okay, that's true, that's true.
That would be a cleanup
Can
thing.
I
in
ask
the
a
future.
question?
that would be-
I don't know if you know this, but when it's just not more than, who determines what the range is?
Who enforces this one, you or you? All right, deal. So, yes. Thank you. All right, and then this adds some language around the existing prohibition on engaging in, currently no person shall engage in the retail sale of these items unless they are a wholesale dealer or purchase them from a wholesale dealer. And so this would add not only engage in the retail sale, but also importation, distribution, wholesale sale, or a combination of these unless they are a retailer or, a wholesaler or purchase them from a wholesaler.
Jen, I'm sorry, I'm gonna back this up. It actually applies to both sections, but, when we're using the term person, is this something that's expected to apply to the establishment?
Yes, this is person in the Title I individual or entity
Okay.
definition.
Okay.
I have been trying to go through, at least in some places, and
In some places, we say individual.
specify individual, because you're not going to have a corporation under 16 years of age may back sell if they have a license, but it's the individual. So I'm trying to do some cleanup of that as we go through to be more specific, because sometimes it really matters if you're talking about the clerk or the establishment.
Right, right. And so I guess the question I have, and this is for Liquor and Lottery, thank you for being here today. So this is moving. I'm not sure how it's done now since it wasn't criminal, we're moving into civil, but, do you find the establishment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The reason that I'm asking is
It's
because,
a civil penalty. Should it be an administrative?
I know,
It's an unlicensed entity over which you can no jurisdiction, so yes, if it's an unlicensed entity, you do not find them as they are not our licensee, in that case, it is a civil.
Is this the state's attorney AGO situation?
without a license, yeah, so it's without a license, yeah, so it wouldn't be administrative, yeah. So does this mean it's gonna have to go judiciary?
Didn't in the Senate.
It didn't in the Senate?
Well, it does seem to be taking a traveling roadshow of committees.
Still has spots open on the roster.
I know. No, administrative penalties don't have to, because those are within the jurisdiction of the policy committees. Okay, well, I'll leave it at that and we'll see what Betsy Ann says when it gets
Right.
for. Don't be surprised if she sends it that way, but, penalties usually do not, but I was questioning the use of the word civil as opposed to administrative, but I understand the rationale because you can't do an administrative penalty if they don't have a license.
Right, they're in different
Yeah. Okay.
venues. Okay. And then we get to page 6 and the wholesale dealers. And this is language largely taken from Title 32, where the Department of Taxes currently licenses wholesale dealers. But with a couple of changes. So this is still requiring each wholesale dealer to get a license from the Division of Liquor Control before selling tobacco products or tobacco substitutes in the state and selling them, and they can sell them only to other Vermont licensed wholesale dealers or to retailers, licensed retailers. The application and issuance of the license, there is no, I think we talked about this, but there is no license fee currently under the tax department's regulation of the wholesalers. There would be a license fee here for the DLL regulation of the wholesalers. The license fee is in the same amount as their license fee for wholesale dealers of alcoholic beverages.
Okay, that was my question. I was trying to figure out why it's $1,245.
Yes. And this would be an annual fee for each outlet. Again, there is no charge under the current Department of Taxes framework, and the license is issued and does not expire as long as the person is still doing business in the same outlet, same location.
Wholesalers, there's no process for the municipality for wholesalers, only for.
Right.
Any questions on that?
So license is issued by the division upon application. And all of this starts in July of 2027. So it gives some time for that transition over from tax to DLL. There are penalties for sale without a license. There are penalties under the existing law as well, but these have been increased to match the increased penalties for the retailers. So any wholesaler who sells, offers, or possesses with intent to sell without first getting a license would be subject to a civil penalty of not more than $2,000 for the first offense and not more than $5,000 for each subsequent offense. The term of the license, as I mentioned, is new here because there was no term. It never expires under the existing Department of Tax Administration. These would be valid for 1 year from the date of issue, like the retail licenses that we looked at. And they can't, that's only for the place, the premises, it was the location it was issued for. And the person business. And then it allows the division to revoke or suspend the license of any licensed wholesaler for failure to comply with any provision of this chapter or a portion of the corporation law or the tobacco tax chapter or the master settlement agreement and enabling provisions there. Is that a question? Okay.
Oh, sounded, okay.
So I wondered, with revocation here for wholesalers, we don't have a similar revocation for retail sellers? Might we want something like that?
I don't know if there's an administrative process other than there's a revocation coming up for somebody who repeatedly violates the sale to minors ban, but I don't know if there's an administrative process now by which. Okay, so it may be just addressed elsewhere.
I see.
But
Sorry, just the first. There is a revocation process. It's in 7 BSA 10.
Okay, I love it.
I'm sure the section will see.
You just gotta know.
It is your job. He does this every day.
There's a sense of how many wholesalers operate in the state of Vermont?
That's a great question. Under current statute is their privileged tax information. JFO did some digging and they're up with a list of roughly 30. We would surmise that those are the wholesalers that have allowed their information to be published.
So we will know this information better in the future.
Right.
One of the reasons for transferring it.
being able to.
being able to actually enforce, do
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
enforcement.
Key.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just have a quick question, on page 7, section C, the penalties for sales without a license. So that's specifically for someone who's wholesaling in Vermont, who's maybe online, someone's retail outlets buying product from a wholesaler that's not licensed in Vermont. And so this would allow penalties to be assessed to that individual? No, okay.
I would refer to the age, this is an unlicensed entity, but I believe it's on the.
Yeah, it's just 7, line 1. I'm just trying to understand, like, we have this penalties for wholesaling without a license. Would that be someone who's like selling wholesale to a retail establishment that doesn't have a wholesale license in Vermont? And then they could be fined for doing that.
So yes, essentially, where the easiest way to look at this is internet. sales, right? Anybody who's importing, so if you go back to the definition of wholesaler, importation for non-personal use, that could be anybody sending in, now, there's a section coming up on internet sales anyway, but it dovetails with this. So if you're not licensed, it doesn't matter whether you are a distributor in a different state and a Vermont retailer contacts you, but you don't have a Vermont license, you can't sell it to Vermont.
And if you do, this is what happens.
And just because it is germane in a little bit, part of it is that the wholesalers are the ones who apply the taxes and ensure the taxes are paid on these products. It happens at a wholesale level, it doesn't really happen at retail level. That's why we want only our licensed wholesalers.
Okay. Now we get to where you do have some suggestions, more recent developments, suggestions for changes. This is section 1005, which is the current prohibition on what people often refer to as purchase, use, and possession, although really it's the language itself is possession, purchase, or attempting to purchase by anyone under 21 years of age. Under current law, a person under 21 years of age shall not possess, purchase, or attempt to purchase tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia unless either they are working for a retailer and they're holding them, they have possessed them in the course of their employment, or they are possessing them in connection with indigenous cultural tobacco practices. And the bill as it came to you would strike that prohibition. It also strike out the prohibition on someone under 21 years of age misrepresenting their age to purchase or attempt to purchase tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia, and would strike out language saying that a person who does possess those items in violation of the prohibition would be subject to having them immediately confiscated and be further subject to a civil penalty of $25, brought in the same manner as a traffic violation. And then the bill as it came to you would keep the prohibition or the penalty for someone under 21 years of age who misrepresents their age by using false identification. And they would be subject to a civil penalty of, the bill as came to you would increase that from $50 to $100 or provide up to 10 hours of community service or both, and specify that an action, and that's current law, and specify that an action under this section would be brought in the same manner as a traffic violation, which I believe it is currently, although it's not specified that way. So there have been some stakeholder efforts since this language to maybe make some modifications there. I think some of it came up in the context of an interest in being able to confiscate items from minors, but it's hard to confiscate something that they're not prohibited from having. So there's some efforts to maybe reinstate the prohibition on possession, but remove the penalty.
Yeah, let's
defer to some others if you want.
Can you pull up that proposed language, Jen?
I think it'll be coming from your email, isn't it cool?
Okay.
Nice. I have it, but do you want me to maybe not put your email address up on the screen? Okay.
City council, right?
Don't worry, I won't. I'm too busy.
Oh, here.
A little more screen. All right, so this is the suggested change, and individual is bold because I had said when we were looking at another version of keeping some part of this, this is one of the places I'm suggesting change in person to individual. So their proposal would be to reinstate some of this. So it would say an individual under 21 years of age shall not possess tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia unless, and it would keep the two exceptions for, somebody working for a retailer or involved with some indigenous cultural tobacco practices, would continue to strike out subsection just the purchase or attempt to purchase. And then it would add some language in C. So I guess it would keep what there is and just make it C1. So still increasing the penalty, still specifying the traffic violation, but then adding language saying an individual found in violation of this subsection would be given the option to enroll in a nationally recognized youth tobacco cessation program to be determined by the Department of Health as an alternative to civil penalties or community service. And then some version of adding this to the seizure and contraband section, allowing the items to be, these items possessed by an individual under 21 to be subject to seizure.
So I have a question. So if we, on page 8, delete everything that says, everything that's deleted here. Is there any place in state law that says a person cannot purchase tobacco under the age of 21?
No, they can't be sold to, but they can purchase. I mean, it doesn't prohibit them from purchasing, it just shouldn't have.
So that's a problem for me. I'm just gonna say that. Sorry, people. I guess I'm okay with not assessing a fine or, but it is illegal. And I guess I still want it to be illegal. Yeah. It's not about purchasing though.
C is using fake ID. Basically, purchase.
It's just about fake ID. Yeah, I know. It's about fake ID.
18-year-old who walks in and says, "I'd like a carton of cigarettes," as long as they don't present a fake ID, they've done nothing wrong.
Right. Which is inconsistent with current law. I mean, we're removing the only thing that makes it, again, I am okay with taking away the fines and, all that and encouraging the punitive kind of thing, but I guess I'm not okay with saying that it's okay for youth under the age of 21 to purchase tobacco. And I know that we're saying that there's a thing in here about using fake ID, but that's all that it says.
I guess I'm kind of thinking about understanding that the punitive aspect of it, I get. But on the other side, should there be some consequence? Right? Because if it's illegal and we're saying it's illegal and they go in and buy it, then what happens then? What is the consequence of that action? And if it's not a fine, then what is it?
I'm also looking at this, we're talking about a public health perspective here. And if we're not putting in statute that it is that we are discouraging purchase of tobacco by youth under the age of 21. We just talked about the millions of dollars we're spending on prevention, and yet we're saying in the opposite thing, but it's not illegal for you to purchase it. That doesn't make sense to me, I'll just be honest.
But we're also talking about possessing it.
That's different.
Right, but so if you purchase it, you're both purchasing and possessing.
Not necessarily.
You'd have to have it on your person. If you just bought it, they would hand it to you.
Right, but you could possess it without purchasing it.
Correct. So then you would be double.
I wouldn't.
It would be-
I'm putting out my personal feelings about this. I'm just putting that out there as I want to make sure that people understand what is being struck and what that means,
Mhm.
what the suggestion is. And I am 100% about doing away with the punitive aspects of, fines and penalties on youth. I don't have any problem with that. But I feel like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, when if we're not putting forth something saying that it's illegal for them to be possessing and purchasing or attempting to purchase.
I'm just not thinking of it in the moment. I imagine it exists. Can something be illegal with absolutely no penalty of any kind? I mean, do we have other things in
You're
statute?
setting the standard. The answer is yes.
So it's just illegal.
Mhm.
Would you
Well,
be-
and we can, the second part that's up there about the, keep going, Jen, the next part, right there. You can still found in violation of that, given the option to enroll in nationally recognized youth tobacco
This
program.
is just, right now, this is just related to the.
I realize that, but I mean, that could be an option for the whole section that maybe includes it's illegal to purchase, possess, or attempt to purchase.
Correct.
But you're saying that's the penalty, if you will, could be that if you don't present a fake ID, but you go in and purchase, you would have to enroll in a program.
Now you're in possession, so you would have to.
You don't have to though, apparently.
Right.
Yeah,
It's voluntary.
yeah. And
Are you saying
Right.
voluntary under 2?
yes.
Right now, yeah.
But
Right now,
but that's an option as an alternative to civil penalties or community service. So
Right.
you can create whatever provisions
So
for.
then we could do
Oh, it's an
community
old.
service.
So let's sort of, I'm gonna bring us back to sort of talking about, we'll get to this in a minute, but I'm just trying to, what are people's thoughts about, I want to make sure that you're looking at page 8 and everything is being struck here. Is essentially saying, it's not illegal for you to have,
Youth up through age 20.
yes.
So I think if the idea of not penalizing a 14-year-old is that they're getting caught up in marketing that is heavily targeting them
Mhm.
to buy this brightly colored thing, whatever,
Mhm.
that is different than a 20-year-old who goes in and tries to buy a pack of cigarettes.
In both cases, we want to say that it is not legal.
Yeah.
And we're not,
Correct. Yeah.
if we stick with
I
this
agree
language.
with you, if that's what, like, if people think about.
Yes, I want to know what people think
agree.
about it.
I think we should be explicit about this is illegal. Then the next step is, what are the consequences of if someone is found in violation of this law, then what is the consequence of that? That would be the next step. But I think we're now looking for the committees, like, do you agree that this should be actually illegal? We should be explicit about it is illegal,
That's the way it is now.
but we're.
So we should leave it the way it is now and
Current
add
law,
current
in
law.
current law, not in the bill.
Yeah, the bill is
Right.
proposed to strike it.
Correct.
The way it is now is the remaining sentence.
And this is for sale, for purchasing.
No, this is, right now, we're talking about purchasing and possessing.
Yeah, Well, I have feelings about possession simply because of my own personal experience as a kid. I was asked to carry my parents. Why should I have to go through a training program? It should be my parents that should have to do that. You know? And so I can see where possession is an issue, for sure. But I can also see there would be opportunities for somebody, there's judgment involved.
Does law supersede a bill?
Yeah.
Like, if it's in law, wouldn't that?
This is what you're creating law.
We're creating law? Oh.
This bill
I
is.
thought maybe there was a statute or something. I
There
don't.
is. This,
But this'll get rid of that?
right.
You're right, you're looking at
Potentially.
whether to change the existing statute. So the existing
And
statute has
I
everything
agree
that is
with
not.
Teresa. Yeah, yeah, I agree with
You agree that it should still be illegal?
Still be illegal because we gotta teach kids responsibility, and if we don't help them, they're never gonna learn.
I know. We got antsy people over here on the side. I know. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
One of the strongest lifelong impacts I can think of is just what sticks with you on your record, of course, and especially starting at a younger age. And so wanting to see how that plays into this, and like I almost wish I could hear from people, and I know it's not possible right now, but just with, like, or maybe attorneys in the room, like what does stay on your record versus what doesn't, if you comply with certain consequences involved. And two, in terms of thinking of our incentives, like, of course, what we would prefer is for them to really engage in some kind of addiction center treatment versus like actually having something on the record. Like, that's not really the end goal for us that we want to achieve. So figuring out how those interplay. And I don't know what.
There's nothing to, I would like to hear from an attorney.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's nothing to prosecute here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
if
saying?
we
So
were
I'm
to
not
get
sure
rid of
that- I'm
it.
not sure there's a record.
Oh, you mean if
That's
we,
what I want to know.
of course, if you're saying if we were to get rid of like everything on page 8.
No, I'm saying even if we kept it, but there's no penalty and there's no prosecution,
Yeah.
is there, what is the record is my question. So you're bringing up a question, does it have a record then?
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm
The
asking.
current statute, yeah.
Yes.
So
If we take out the penalty, that's what I'm asking.
getting back to the status quo under current law, and I'm gonna look to Hannah to jump in as necessary. These are basically like traffic tickets. This is not a criminal prosecution.
Yeah.
And so, as a general matter, your permanent record just takes me back to 80s alt rock.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would say there's no permanent record on any of this stuff. The internet changes all of that, but as far as law enforcement that goes, these really are much more like a speeding ticket. That said, I would defer to the chair on when you want to engage in some of the campaign for tobacco-free kids. Have pretty compelling data around what happens when there are penalties associated with possession, purchase, and use, and the interaction young people who are largely being preyed upon by a fairly, I don't think I need to oversell what Big Tobacco does in terms of the rapacious quality of its sales and marketing, especially towards youth. And so then we're looking at the kids who are responding to that, being potentially within the crosshairs of some kind of enforcement action, whatever it may be, whether there's a kind of penalty associated with it, even if it's compelled community service. Those are the kind of challenges that get kids caught up in a system that they are not necessarily responsible for being part of directly. That said, part of the reason the language I showed from my email was a lot of conversation with the advocates, because I think where the AG's office sat was also discomfort around, so wait, a 12-year-old, my 13-year-old kid could like have a pack of smokes, out here on State Street, and so where we got to with good conversation was to say, look, possession is the issue, right? As Rep. Noyes said, once you purchase, you have possession. And it's really on the retailer not to allow that purchase to occur. Not to allow, to Rep. X's point, like, you shouldn't be furnishing your kid with tobacco, that's also illegal. So even if it's not a direct retail purchase, there's also, it's unlawful to furnish. But if a kid has cigarettes or vapes or Xanax or whatever the product is, there should be some kind of requirement or permission for the adults in the room to take the product. And the policy, that's a policy question. The other policy question is, is there some kind of need for a penalty on this? And I think a lot of the research shows it's much harder to get kids into cessation and away from the product if there's a fear of a penalty. Almost regardless of how high-minded we think that penalty is, that's the challenge. So that's it. I went way further than you asked, Chairwoman, so I apologize for that, but.
No,
I found it interesting.
all right, one person at a time. Ray?
Yeah, so my question is, can something be illegal without a penalty?
Yes.
And
It can be unlawful.
I guess that's a policy question for us, because I would prefer for it to be illegal with no like punitive penalty, because then at least it kind of states our intent, like, then it doesn't make it seem like we're talking about both sides of our, because I think, right, if we strike this out, a lot of people are gonna be like, so a 15-year-old can have a packet, carton of cigarettes and it's fine. But if we're saying it's illegal, but we don't want to further penalize these kids who are being marketed and preyed upon, then at least we're making the statement to that. So that's my preference, but I don't know what.
I'm trying to balance what I know the research shows in terms of this, the concept of penalty. So, I'm not even sure I go with the $100 penalty, civil penalty. I'd probably be more lenient than that. But I just I have a hard time saying that it's not illegal for a 21-year-old to possess, purchase, or attempt to purchase tobacco or tobacco-related products. Go
The
ahead.
penalty is more directed at the ID. And
Right, so that can be very specific.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, what are other penalties for having a fake ID or trying to misrepresent
Like what-
yourself, your age?
Let's ask the Corn Lottery. They do the
Yeah.
same thing in liquor. Thank you.
And then the other thing is because I understand,
PGH is a long time ago.
I understand we're trying to get away from a penalty for possession. Is there a way to use it so that those products could be taken away from the individual? It's their personal property at that point.
And that's the other piece of what they're proposing
Right.
is. And that's kind of how we got.
Confiscate
in the
it.
first place is, yes, is.
Then who would?
Subject to seizure, that's what it
Subject to
does.
seizure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah, take it away, but if they use the fake ID, then there's some sort of a penalty associated with the fake ID and misrepresenting who they are, other than the possession, which is not allowed, but separate.
all right, so given the fact that it is not, there's no criminal record involved with this. I'm hearing consensus around elimination in some cases and reducing penalty. And I think we should reduce what's been proposed here. And then, but could I get a sense from people? I've heard some people state an opinion. I haven't heard everybody state an opinion about what I would like to propose is that on page 8, lines 5 through 12 be unstruck. But there would be no penalty, there would be no fine for that. So it says, and then we would move to the discussion about
Yes.
this other proposal about fake ID.
And
Looking at page 8, lines 9 through 12.
No, I'm looking at
5 through 12.
page 8, lines 5 through 12.
Olive
Possess.
subdivision A1.
So think about that. You don't have to make a decision right now. Think about that, okay? Otherwise, we're just saying it's not illegal.
Yeah. No, I'm for it.
So in this same realm, but I just have circled the indigenous cultural tobacco practices. We're not looking at changing any of that, correct? In this.
No, my
this
proposal,
edition-
Putting it back in.
Right,
my proposal is putting that back in.
okay, and that would just be exactly as it is now. Because that was
Except
was
I'm gonna change
Remember, we had.
we had a long
we had a
time on the
long
floor
time
over
on the
that, so
floor
I'm
about
just
that.
making sure that if someone asks, we're not changing anything than is in current practice for indigenous cultural tobacco practices.
In both cases.
Yes.
It will be okay.
Yep, just making sure.
Just
I'm
want
gonna have to answer that question.
in both cases, yes. And it looks like Hannah might have a response.
Procurement, possession, and consumption penalties. A person who knowingly violates any of subdivisions under each of the subsection commits a civil violation and shall be referred to the court diversion program for the purpose of enrollment in the youth substance awareness and safety program. So it's a referral to diversion.
And it's a shall
And that's for alcohol.
That's for alcohol. Yeah,
versus.
yeah, we're not being that strict on this. We're saying.
If we say may,
Uh,
wonder if we use the same language. we say-
Right, so what you're looking at is may as an alternative to the monetary or community service penalties, is what you're looking
Yeah.
at for the fake ID.
yeah. Okay, so we, didn't get as far as I'd hoped, but, this was a good discussion. This is kind of the meat of the bill for us, really, this kind of whole section. So, I'm gonna ask you to think about, what I just said, reinstating lines 5 through 12, and then looking at, what is being proposed. I forwarded it to you on April 22nd. That was the language that was met with the advocates and the Attorney General's office. And as you heard me say already, I'm in favor of reducing that fine. Okay,
So, Madam Chair, is it either reinstating those lines 5 through 12 foregoing with the language including?
no, they're separate things. So reinstating and
Mm-hmm. Look at that.
not having a penalty for possession.
Yep.
No penalties. Okay? Thank you, Jen. All right. Now I'm seeing a friendly face on the screen. Good afternoon.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone. We're changing topics now. We're moving to forensic facilities in S-193. So we had two witnesses this afternoon from the perspective of people who provide services or have provided services. And with us this afternoon is Kelsey Stout. How do you say your name, Kelsey? I can't do the second one. There's views on you.
Oh, we lost Stan's.
Oh, he left. Okay, now he'll come back.
Can I keep this?
Yeah, she can. I know, it's very warm in here. And then
Reese came in.
we have Bill Ash, who is former director both at Washington County and executive director at Upper Valley Services. So we're going to have Kelsey will be back on here shortly. So I've invited these two witnesses. As I said, these are folks who have provided services to individuals.
Person, open the door.
Okay. Yeah, you can just open it all the way up so it doesn't slam shut or anything. There you go. That's fine. It's very warm here for people we're on the third floor. Okay, so this is people who have provided services to individuals who have been involved with law enforcement, who also have an intellectual or developmental disability. So, Kelsey, are you with us? Kelsey?
There.
Okay. All right. You know what? We are going to start off with Bill Ash then to keep things moving. So, Bill, and Kelsey, hopefully you can hear us. We like to do introductions because, so you know who's in the room, particularly when you're appearing via Zoom. So, you know, it's hard to tell with those pictures who is actually here. So, as you know, I'm Teresa Wood. I Waterbury. I also serve Bolton, Buell Gore, and Huntington.
Hi, I'm Ray Garofano. I live in Essex and I also serve a portion of Essex Junction.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming in. I'm Esme Cole, representing Hartford.
Hello, I'm Son Eastis. I live in Guilford and I also represent Vernon.
Hello, Doug Bishop. I'm one of Colchester's representatives.
Brenda Steady, East Milton, Westford.
Hi, good afternoon. Eric McGuire, I represent Rutland City.
Amy?
Amy Johnson, Vermont Care Partners.
Dana Lee Perry from Grassing Group.
Oh, sure. Brian Minier from Corrections and Institutions.
Welcome, Brian. And Brian, you're welcome to sit up to the table if you like. Nobody sits in that last seat.
It's whatever's comfortable, sure.
That's great.
Thank you.
And Lori? Kelsey, are you back with us?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Sit right here.
Okay, good. I had to join. For some reason my computer audio isn't working, but so I joined on my phone and I'm hoping I can pop up here. Okay, you got me on the phone and now I'm on the video. I think I did it.
Okay, so we started off by me saying, how do you pronounce your last name?
Stavseth.
All right. Thank
I think you get it most times. I know it looks a little hard, but it's I think you got it right. Stavseth.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. As you know, we have a bill S-193 that is seeking to establish a forensic facility for people, certain individuals who've been involved with the criminal justice system and seeking to do so within a correctional facility. And so we invited you here because y'all have experience as either current or former designated agency folks who have served people under what we call Act 248, which is a civil commitment procedure. So I'll leave it up to you. Whoever wants to go first is fine. Anybody have time commitments that, you know, you have to be out of here at a certain time?
No.
Nope.
Okay, all right, why don't we start with Kelsey first then?
Okay, I've got a little slideshow to guide us here. So, and I will send over the PDF after. Let me just share my screen quickly.
Thank you.
Everybody see that?
We can. You might want to go to slideshow view though. There we go.
Okay. So first of all, my name is Kelsey Stavseth. I'm the executive director at Northeast Kingdom Human Services, for the record, and also co-president of Vermont Care Partners, which is the designated specialized service agency network. And so first, thank you for having me in to testify. As always, appreciate this. And, you know, especially on this important topic of a forensic facility or a intensive therapeutic secure facility to provide services for people whose intensity and acuity requires a higher level of care. And so as a designated agency, we do provide very intensive services, sometimes very individualized and sometimes in very intensive, staff-heavy, and although community-based, can support a number of folks on Act 248 who have committed crimes but have been deemed to be incompetent to stand trial. So the designated agency system does do well, and sometimes in rare instances, there are situations that rise above our ability to care for folks. And so having another opportunity for acute care is something that we are advocating for. I think it's about how and where. And I've got a few slides to take us through that. So first of all, I want to talk about that we are in agreement that we need specialized, secure treatment options. And, especially for folks with a developmental disability, we don't have that highest level of care that says a secure facility when someone is really struggling. And for us, specifically at NKHS, we do have had instances in the last couple of years where I think we could have benefited from a specialized treatment facility for acute care when the situation rises to a level of intensity where we cannot keep the person safe, the community, or our staff. We agree with competency restoration pathways, oriented around clinically appropriate services. We definitely want to center the victims in the process, making sure that there's strong communication, that victims are informed and heard through this process is incredibly important. And then we want to continue to center any services around therapeutic trauma-informed approaches. And it is really important that the clinical aspect of this is set up well.
Before you move on.
Oh, yeah.
We can't see your face anymore, so that's why I'm just, anyways. So I guess I'm interested in your thoughts on a clinical perspective, and we'll hear from Dr. Ash as well, but I'm interested in your thoughts about competency restoration for people who have a cognitive disability that is lifelong and is not going to benefit from a competency restoration process. And I think it's really important, Kelsey, to make sure that we're understanding what processes seem appropriate for certain populations and may be less appropriate or maybe even inappropriate for other populations. Because this bill as designed, it can cover people with dementia, can cover people with brain injuries, can cover people with substance use disorders, can cover essentially anyone who is adjudicated to be incompetent to stand trial or is found not guilty by reason of insanity. So the incompetent to stand trial is a much broader net that is being cast here. And I think it's really important for my committee to understand when you're making statements, if you're making statements that apply to all of those populations or only specific populations within specific subcategories of folks within that broad group of people.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I do. The next slide kind of speaks to that. So clinically appropriate is a broad term. And I think it's that way because some of the concerns that we have is like, how will this be implemented? What is the definition of incompetent to stand trial? Who determines that? Those are big questions. And I think, is it a mental health condition? Is it dementia? Is it an IDD diagnosis? Those would, in my opinion, impact how the clinical and therapeutic supports are applied and would need criteria to follow through. And so I think that's one thing we're advocating for. And one thing that we're concerned about is that is not clear. And I would also defer to experts and that might be, Bill Ash, who's here, could speak perhaps more to those details. But I think what we're advocating for is saying, like, we want to see more details around how this would be implemented and not move forward until that is clear. And so I do think there would be potentially different criteria applied to different people based on the circumstance, diagnosis, and situation. And I think that's a big part of this process and some of the concerns that we do have. I just moved on to that next slide, but saying,
go ahead.
That you mentioned this kind of the overly broad eligibility, saying, the expansive definition with unclear clinical thresholds. How do we want to apply this where appropriate, but how do we avoid having people get caught up in this? And who's determining and deciding what it means to be incompetent, and how is that applied to each person in each situation? So that is unclear to me, and just one place we want to highlight. in saying that's a concern we have about moving forward. And so, you know, that's tied to the pathway to get in. So not only what's the clinical definition, but what happens during that process and then after, and saying having the resources to reassess those found not competent and not restorable. And so would people get stuck in the process and potentially be confined in what is being proposed as jail for, you know, an undefined amount of time. And the other part here saying, you know, we do have concerns about this being housed in corrections, saying that when you're doing therapeutic and clinically appropriate supports, the environment is incredibly important. And having a correctional framework that can be based on compliance makes it hard to have a truly therapeutic environment. And so we would be concerned about the physical infrastructure and environment that would be applied to these situations. I know it's been done in other states, but it's something that we wanted to highlight as saying, again, how would this be implemented? The lack of independent oversight, I think that's incredibly, anyway, something that needs to be addressed. So having the state oversee the state on these things and saying, like, how do we have independence in someone to come in? I would cite Woodside as a recent example of something we're saying, like, when we confine people, we need good independent oversight so we don't repeat mistakes of the past. The step down pathways, we do have in some instances IRRs in the community where we do support people. We do have intensive supports for individuals with developmental disabilities, including Act 248. We, you know, NKHS, but other designated agencies do support folks in Act 248 with good success. But again, we need to make sure that there are good settings and supports for step down if people are coming out of this more intensive facility. And then just making sure that we have the workforce with appropriately trained, well-trained staff. And we need to invest in that so that the continuum is strong. And so I think things pop up and we're saying, look, here's what we need. We need a higher level of care, but we also need to have the whole system function together. And without a good, strong continuum of care that's thoughtfully implemented, it weakens each individual aspect of the system that we're trying to build. And so we just want to make sure that the upstream supports are there, and that if we are moving towards a more intensive, therapeutic and secure facility, that we're also thinking about the rest of the system and how we support folks after their stay. Amy and I actually testified about this 2 years ago, I believe. And so this is specifically for developmental disabilities, and saying there was an act, and so there was work to be done to look into how do we improve care in the least restrictive setting, and then what would a more intensive support look like for folks with developmental disabilities. We don't think that work has been fully realized, and that moving in a direction where we could be incarcerating folks with developmental disabilities for unknown amounts of time or with unknown criteria is something that's very concerning to us, specifically for the DD folks. And so this is what we would like to see, which is, like, we want it to be clinically led. Yes, we need secure and intensive supports, but don't feel like the correctional facility is therapeutic or the best option. How do we ensure that there are check-ins to saying, as we're working towards restoration, that this is intentionally transitional and that people aren't lost in the process? We do want to say what happens when there are non-restorable conditions. Some individuals do have lifelong conditions that can't be restored. And so what happens then? We do have some pathways. Again, I mentioned Act 248, but that needs to be clearly rolled out. Independent oversight is key. How do we have, evaluations by independent clinicians, and also with people who have no vested interest in the program to be able to assess its efficacy and how it's treating folks. How do we define how long folks are there? We need step downs. Again, I mentioned some of those options. Are they well resourced? Do they work well with this new proposed resource? How do we make sure that we have the right staff? And then we really want to be working in partnership and leverage the expertise from Dale, DMH, and VDH, but they've got to be participating in this process. And so we know that there is a need for this, but we're thinking that there are steps that need to be taken to make this, or to make sure we follow through on this in a way that is with the intention of being a service that's needed, but it's got to be therapeutic, clinically led, in an environment that supports folks who are moving through the system.
Thank you. Couple of questions. So is Northeast Kingdom Human Services currently supporting anybody on Act 248 status?
Yes. Yep. We do and have been for a while. And I think we do a really good job. We do have some really intensive specific programs, and that would fall into exceptions. We do have some models where we have 2-to-1 staff, where we have specialized housing, where we have modifications to houses to protect staff, to protect the client and protect the community. And so we work closely with Dale on a number of those things, but Northeast Kingdom does have a number of folks who we support on Act 248, and I think with good success. I will say that, recently having conversation with our residential director and saying that, like 2 years ago, still today, we're in support of a higher level of care. And there are some instances where the needs of supports exceed our ability to do that. And that usually involves us calling law enforcement. It usually involves people being brought to the hospital. And then, unfortunately, when we see someone who is struggling, they're usually brought back to us. And so sometimes that means adding another staff. So we have had instances where we went 3-to-1, 3 staff to 1 person for safety. But there have been instances where we've advocated strongly saying, look, the person we're supporting right now has a different status, and that we need help beyond what we can currently provide. So we have had instances and have advocated before saying we need help, and that just hasn't existed so far.
Thank
and
you.
I will say that these instances are very rare, but I do think necessary.
Thank you for, I think, pointing out some of the things in the bill that, as the bill currently stands, definitely need some attention for sure. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is around the community support system. So on the developmental disability side, which is something we're more familiar with in this committee, and orders of non-hospitalization aren't under our jurisdiction, but that's never stopped me from asking a question. I'm just wondering, do you, through the Department of Mental Health, have access to resources that would enable you to provide the same kind of community residential support that you do under Act 248 for, I'm not saying all people under an ONH, but maybe, certain particular individuals who maybe pose a particular safety risk? Do you have access to resources? Are you able to submit a proposal to DMH that can be individually funded to provide that same kind of 24/7 community-based secure program?
So what we do have folks on ONHs, and so we do have intensive residential recovery services, which, I think our programs are intended to provide short-term 24/7 residential mental health supports who need a higher level of care before returning to the community. This is focused on recovery. I will say that in our area, it's Eagle Eye Farm. We don't run an IRR directly. I believe some designated agencies do. We do not. And so we do work closely with them. We do provide the case management and some therapeutic services for some folks, but who have been in services for a very long time. So we do have access, but we don't have, to the best of my ability, we haven't presented specific proposal for individuals to do that. We haven't personally done that. So I'm not sure. I don't think we've ever presented a proposal to DMH saying, hey, we would support this person one-on-one from a mental health perspective the same way we do with Dale. So I can't speak directly to that if DMH would be open to it or not, but we don't have the same mechanisms. And the other thing that's changed is that we've been moving to a habilitative service and saying formerly CRT, now TPL 63, I believe, changes how we support folks. And so there is opportunities to provide some enhanced services if they meet certain criteria. That's revisited every 6 months to see if more intensive community-based services like case management are able to be provided. So there are mechanisms to try and provide more intensive services, but I would not say on the same level individually as Dale does through Act 248.
Okay. Which I honestly think comes to the crux of the problem and why we have this bill and why it continues to come up. And so we'll be hearing from DMH tomorrow and the whole entourage from the Agency of Human Services tomorrow. So, which is, one of the, I guess what I would say is one of the key issues is that when somebody is committed to the custody and care of the commissioner of Dale, there's a very different process that happens to assure community safety at the same time trying to understand why and what are the reasons why these things happened. Often, as you know, that, people have trauma histories of themselves and have experienced abuse themselves. And, lots of times things have gone unaddressed. And then there are other times when things happen and they shouldn't have happened and there's not really a good reason. So this is the part that we're struggling with in this committee is sort of lumping all of this into this one proposal when there's parts of the system that seem to not be at the same level as other parts of the system. So if I were to look at the milieu right now of all of the potentially covered people in this bill, the only one that has 24/7 on an ongoing basis, potentially for the rest of their lives, is the folks covered under Act 248. And that's still with judicial review that happens on an annual basis. And that doesn't exist in any of those other populations that we, that potentially are covered under this bill. So I am, still trying to grapple with that in terms of this one size fits all approach to a forensic facility. But you've been very helpful in describing, what some of the elements are that would need to be enhanced in the bill and what your current experiences are. So I have monopolized this. Yes, Representative Steady, there is a big cost to S-193.
There is.
Yes, we don't know what it is, but I can tell you it won't be cheap.
Okay.
So that's all I can tell you. I get popped up. Questions from other members of the committee? And from our visitor from Corrections and Institutions, you're welcome to ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
I'll separate this moment. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Dr. Ash. Thank you, Kelsey. Bill, it's nice to see your friendly face. We can't hear you. You got to unmute. I know you're out of practice.
There, yep, that a little better.
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you today. I do have some prepared thoughts that I'm going to provide you, and then hopefully there'll be some questions that you folks would have. as prelude, I've not been able to benefit from any of the previous discussions that have happened across the state of Vermont with respect to this bill. So I am reacting based upon reading the bill and reflecting against my own experiences in the state of Vermont. So I do thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Bill Ash, and I am currently retired. I began my career in 1970. That dates me probably, working in an institution that served about 1,600 people all in one place. And that's roughly a third of the number of people that are served across the entire state of Vermont with developmental disabilities. So my career started with 1,600 in one spot. So I have a whole lot of experience with people with disabilities living in close proximity to each other. I worked at this institution in a direct care capacity for a number of years before I was put into a position of the Director of Developmental Disability Services for the Springfield, Massachusetts region, where I was involved in developing community-based services for people with disabilities. I came back to Vermont in 1980 and was the program director for developmental disabilities for Washington County Mental Health. And I was in that position for 12 years through 1992, at which point I became the executive director of Upper Valley Services, where I served for 29 years. So altogether in Vermont providing services, I provided services to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including people with really significant challenges for a whole lot of reasons, for a combined total of 41 years. So I'm kind of ancient in that regard, but I've seen an awful lot of changes that have happened. And back in 1980, in the 1980s, it became clear that Vermont had a gap, a system gap, and that allowed for the civil commitment of people with developmental disabilities, but only if the person was found to be a danger to him or herself. So someone who was a danger to somebody else and was found not competent to stand trial, there was really very few mechanisms in that individual would be released because there wasn't any other kind of a commitment process until Act 248 was put into place in 1987. So the act defined a process where a court could commit an individual who had engaged in criminal activity and was found not competent to stand trial to the care and custody of the Commissioner of Mental Health. And this created the mechanism that would receive appropriately designed supervision and treatment for the interest in public safety, so that people, even if they did not want to participate, were now able to be compelled to be in a program that would provide them with appropriate kinds of supports. Having been in a position in Vermont to provide services to individuals both prior and subsequent to Act 248, I can attest to its effectiveness in serving this particular population. In my view, Act 248 should make the reliance on a forensic facility for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities extremely remote, if at all. A main intent of this bill is to focus on restoring someone to competency, thus enabling them to stand trial for the criminal charges being brought against them. For individuals with an intellectual or developmental disability, such a goal in most instances, in my judgment, is not viable. This is due to the characteristics of the disability itself. Someone with an intellectual or developmental disability is likely to experience challenges with cognitive functioning that affect their reasoning and problem-solving ability, challenges with both receptive and expressive communication, challenges with learning and performing social and adaptive skills, challenges with decision-making, challenges with generalizing skills learned across different environments and settings. These challenges for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are lifelong. They are most often noticed in early childhood, before the age of 18, and will continue throughout one's life. They will not be ameliorated over short timeframes, such as are promoted in this bill. Such people, however, can be supported successfully and safely within properly structured and supervised community-based programs. That has been the history, in my judgment, of Act 248. The services and supports provided by designated and specialized agencies in Vermont under Act 248 are very sophisticated. These programs use a system of careful assessment of need, individually designed service structures, individually tailored supervision models, and treatment components that are necessitated by the individual needs. These programs are closely monitored by the state's Vermont Developmental Disabilities Program, as well as by an annual judicial review process to ensure that the need for ongoing custody and care and habilitation continues. This is, I say, is a very sophisticated approach. And when I contemplate the idea of a forensic facility that is going to deal with a lot of different people, it's hard for me to get my head wrapped around how a facility is going to be able to take and individualize its services and supports, no matter how gifted the providers of those services are, to be able to take and individualize within a facility that's going to be effective with those populations, and maybe particularly most of all with individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities, and by extension, other manifestations which may look the same, such as dementia, for example. Risk is continually assessed and reassessed in these program models. Service models will vary a lot in the amount and degree of supervision needed by the individual. And his or her treatment and proper management of community risk is also done on an individual by individual basis. This may range from eyes-on supervision to more intensive models that may include alarms on windows and doors, restrictions on types of environments and movements, or resorting to technologies such as GPS bracelets if warranted in order to track individuals' locations at all times. It has been shown to be an appropriate method of providing supervision that's safe within Vermont. So in summary, in my opinion, the supervision and support models that have been relied upon for nearly 40 years in Vermont through Act 248 should be the foundational model that is put in place for providing services to individuals who are in need of this type of support, irrespective of their diagnosis, because they're all individual people. They're all going to, and grouping them together, in my experience, has not been productive. At least in my experience, it hasn't been productive at all. And I also am concerned that should someone, and I think Kelsey spoke to this, with IDD be placed in a forensic facility such as described, I fear it would become a lifelong place for them. Getting individuals back out of a facility like this would, I think, be extremely difficult. It's my opinion that the targeted population, as described in the bill, which is described in the first part of it, as in someone who's been charged with a crime punishable by a life sentence, for people with IDD would be extremely rare, at least within the population of persons with developmental disabilities. And in my 41 years of providing services in Vermont, I was only asked on a single occasion to support someone who's met that criteria, where they had been charged with a crime that would have left them eligible for a life sentence had they been competent to stand trial. And I can tell you that that individual has been served successfully and safely in the state of Vermont for over 25 years. So I don't have a lot of experience with the mental health populations. My experience is really primarily to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including individuals who've had significant behavioral challenges. But I believe Vermont has a model that has been well established, that has good structure, and has a lot of experience, and should be the framework for anything future contemplated by the state to serve other people, in my judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. let's talk a little bit just about the situation that you alluded to just moments ago around an individual who, I full disclosure, I remember the circumstances very well.
Yes.
I remember you did not want to serve that person.
That's true.
But the purpose of a designated agency system is you don't get to say no.
That's right.
And so my recollection, at least, is at that time is that the state worked with your organization, worked to put in place the exact things that you were talking about in terms of security, as well as trying to understand the individual. I think maybe you could speak a little bit more to that concept of individualization, particularly around
Sure.
folks with developmental disabilities.
Sure. So within the framework for developing services for people with developmental disabilities has evolved from an individualized model, irrespective of what the individual's needs are. So in this particular instance, Act 248 was put into effect in 1987. This request, Rod Copeland was the commissioner at the time, and he and I arm wrestled for a bit, and he won. And so I was asked and was reinforced the idea that as the director of a designated agency, I was required to do this. So the way this began was like in any other instance, we had to get to know this individual and understand what he was alleged to have done, understand allegedly what the triggers were for him, what kind of environment would be able to be put together that would be safe for him and for the community, what kind of considerations needed to be taken in consideration for locating that setting, what kind of supervision requirements would be there in order to anticipate the kind of things that he might be able to do, that went to the number of staff that we needed to have in place and the kind of training that those individuals needed to have in order to be able to be successful with this individual. We needed to locate a place, which we were able to do. We were able to take and put in some levels of security around doors and windows so that it could be not only staff secure, but could be aided by some technology. It was not an inexpensive venture, but it was a successful one. I was personally involved in that because when this individual came into service, there was no one to be with him. And we were in a situation where he needed to be supported immediately. So I actually was the one that was the first person working with him when that call came. So I was able to be involved and shepherded the whole thing by getting to know the individual and putting together the supports that he was going to need that were necessary to protect him and the community.
And what are your thoughts? Kelsey alluded to this as well, that it's kind of we're going to hear from the Agency of Human Services tomorrow, but they've testified in other committees that they would expect maybe 3 to 5 individuals per year might qualify, but then of course some of those folks will stay on an ongoing basis, and so that sort of has this cumulative effect of making a larger, I can't call it a program, a larger facility. And I guess, what are your thoughts around what is the likelihood of an individual who's been determined not competent to stand trial is, maybe pose a moderate risk to the community or public safety? And what's the likelihood of, and Kelsey, this is for you too, so you can come back on there, of what's going to be the impetus for a designated or specialized service agency to act, to set up a community-based program? If, a person is essentially locked away someplace, and you don't have that responsibility, and knowing that it's not easy to do these community programs.
Well, I can tell you another program that I was responsible for was the Vermont Crisis Intervention Network, which served a lot of individuals across the state. And most of those individuals didn't rise to the level of offense that is reflected in this statute. But it was at times difficult to get people out of the VCIN program back to their home organization. It wasn't always difficult, but it was more difficult than I would like to think it would have been for the amount of times that happened. And so I think that there needs to be, and Kelsey spoke to this, he talked about there needs to be a system so that this program does not, if it's created, however it's created, it doesn't freestand someplace, that it's part of a larger whole, that it's connected to the larger system. Because if you don't do that, I do fear that individuals will go in there and they won't have a way to get out. And, I was always told that nature abhors a vacuum. And so if the bed spaces are there and there isn't a good system in place that moves people through them, then I think you're going to get log jammed pretty quickly in a program if you're not really careful.
And I would add, we have had situations where people are in jail because they've committed the crime. And, Dale is persistent and persuasive. And we do talk about the pain points of not being able to say no. I think there's pros and cons that we won't need to get into, but having a system that isn't able to say no and saying you must and we will work with you is important actually to the community-based system, in my opinion. And having the resources to be able to do that, I think we're starting to touch on the new model of payment reform and conflict of interest. But prior to that, we did have processes where we worked closely with Dale, and they did develop exception processes and worked with us specifically to develop individualized programs. So I do think that is something that we want to continue to work with Dale, that we want the least restrictive placement possible, which is always the community if we can do it. And that if we're going to do that well, what we always press Dale on is saying we need the resources to provide those services safely and adequately in a community-based setting, which in some instances means paying salaries to specially trained staff well above what normal compensation looks like. So there are resources that can be dedicated and have, and I think we have examples of those, but that needs to continue to be part of the continuum of care and philosophy. And commitment from Dale is to work with designated agencies who have no reject built into the services to be able to build what is necessary for some of these rare cases in the community, because we don't want to see people get lost in the system either.
Questions from other committee members or visiting committee members? All right, I think you've answered a lot of folks' questions around this particular group of folks and potential impact of this bill and or this proposed bill. And I appreciate you both being here this afternoon, and appreciate your willingness to talk about the challenges, but also about the possibilities and about the long-term success of supporting people with challenging reputations and behaviors that have caused problems for other people, both in terms of safety for themselves and for the community, and the success that has happened in the system to date around that. And so we continually sort of come up with this when we're considering legislation, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? And I think that answer is maybe different depending upon who we ask. And I think that is important, and we're gonna have to deal with those differences of perception. But I think we can do that in a way that doesn't negate the positive things that have happened over the last 40 years, you know, for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who have been involved in the criminal justice system. So thank you both so much for being here this afternoon. And Bill, it's pretty warm here in Vermont today, but probably not as warm as it is in Florida. So
No, it's about 85 here today.
oh yeah, you can keep that.
Someone has to do it.
Yeah, I know, right? All righty. Thank you both for being here this afternoon.
Here, everybody.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. Okay, so committee members, that is our testimony for this afternoon. We are going to continue to take up this bill. We'll be hearing from the Agency of Human Services, all of the commissioners involved with this process for a good chunk of the morning, pretty much all the morning tomorrow. So just an adjustment to the agenda. We're starting at 9:15 tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I needed to make an adjustment. So 9:15 tomorrow. And people will be in and out between here and judiciary because they're taking testimony at the same time we are on the same bill. So we'll have folks in here. So it's important to think about. I'm just encouraging you to think about civil rights protections involved with this. There's constitutionality involved with this. There's resource allocation involved with this. And if we're going to invest resources, where are we going to invest those resources? We had a previous act, as Kelsey pointed out. We have not received a proposal under that act yet. And that was 2 years ago. So we were expecting to receive it back last year, had not received that as far as I can recollect or we can find. So there's lots of questions to ask about this and to consider. You saw, I just want to make sure that you read your email. You saw the Corrections and Institutions initial thoughts about where they're going with this in terms of feedback to the Judiciary Committee. And we will hopefully by the end of this week have something similar, or I don't know if it'll be what they said, but it'll be along that lines. We'll be having recommendations to the Judiciary Committee for language on the bill. And so anybody have any questions about that? Tomorrow we're going to hear from all the AHS folks, and we are also going to hear from Legal Aid, and we are going to hear from the co-chair of the State Program Standing Committee, which is the statewide advisory committee appointed by the governor for developmental disability services. So the co-chair is going to be coming here. They have already forwarded to us their official position, but I wanted her to appear here to answer any questions. So I forwarded that to you all a couple of weeks ago. And then we are going to have committee discussion and potential language development after floor tomorrow. Okay? Yeah.
Will we have the fiscal note?
No, there's not going to be a fiscal notes are only developed after a bill is passed.
So, but this is something that
Committee.
doesn't exist. It would be a whole building like Red Clover, like that.
Right, and those are questions, Brenda, we should ask the agency tomorrow, like what's.
Yeah, that's
your
what I was
budget, you know,
wondering.
what do
When
you-
do we ask that? Because like Red Clover cost 8 million or whatever for 4 kids.
Tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we can ask them that very thing. Okay, anybody have any questions about where we're headed with this? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
One, just to say, I think you probably know this if you've spoken with the other chairs, that either Connor Casey or I will probably be up here hanging out tomorrow or taking turns. The other one was a question whether you've had the new-ish Commissioner of Corrections in and if he's spoken specifically about this.
He's coming tomorrow.
Yep.
That's all I know.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what he's gonna say, but other than I understand he said, yeah, we can do this downstairs in your committee. That's the impression that I had at least?
He said he could do it. He said that by providing therapy, that makes it therapeutic. He said it could be Gen Pop. He said it could be a wing. It could be whatever you want.
He pays for it.
Yeah, well.
Somebody's paying for it. So
Not the tax here.
Yeah. Gen Pop is short language for general population.
Right, yes.
It's included in the general population, which is
you might do it however you like. Yeah.
they're very accommodating.
We'll see if that has evolved. Yeah.
Right, we'll see if that's evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet on the flip side, I can't tell you how many times I have sat in Joint Justice Oversight and heard about the staffing problems in correctional facilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
It was on somewhere I heard it today.
And one might say, if you have room in correctional facilities, why aren't you bringing the people from out of state home? I don't know.
Those are great questions.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna hear from all the commissioners tomorrow, and we're gonna hear, at least she's been invited. I don't know if she has confirmed. Yes. Jay Johnson, which is the governor's attorney.